What's up, guys? Josh Davis here. It is the Philly special, and obviously on a Friday here, I figured, hey, let's hop on, let's run it. Let's talk about the big story, as everyone is curious or wondering, are we going to get the breaking news? Nick Sirianni, is he staying or is he going? Curious to hear your thoughts. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I'm going to get to as many comments as I can. Also, shout out to you guys. We're almost at 42,000 subs. That's unbelievable, ridiculous, but you guys are the best. You know that. And also, hopping on here for the first time live since having my daughter Charlotte. And that was a wild, crazy, awesome experience. But anyway, we can talk about all the stuff. Look forward to hanging out. It is a Friday. Hopefully you're staying warm too. I think that I saw the winter storm is fairly significant. I don't know if that delayed anything or anything on the side with people in Philly, but I did see there was a pretty cool maybe troll job here for the superintendent, but I'll put this up here real quick just for some humor to start us off, and then we'll get to the semi-news. I don't know if we'll call it official yet, but Dr. George Steinoff said all Penn Delco schools be closed tomorrow, which obviously is an old tweet, but he said forecasted snow amounts are increasing. It's expected to be as cold as the Eagles' offense and as slippery as the Eagles' defense has been of late. Stay safe, stay warm. I don't know that I've seen a better troll job from you're doing it for a school system, a superintendent. But that's pretty good. That's pretty good. However, the bigger topic obviously is the Eagles offense being cold, the defense being slippery, and who is at the helm, who continues to say it starts with me. That's Nick Sirianni. And it seems like he's going to be staying. There's not an official that I've seen from Schefter or anyone like that. However, you guys know we've had Anthony DeBono on the show a couple times. He got I guess a text is what it is. I'll throw this one up here too, so everyone is aware. But he got the text, says, I'm not reporting anything, but just sharing what I was recently told regarding Nick Sirianni and his status as head coach of the Eagles. And then you can see there, the text says, I was told he gets to stay, but there will be changes on the staff. So again, I mean, I trust Anthony. We've had him on the show, but I understand if there's hey, let's wait. Let's get Schefter. Let's get, somebody else on this, because I haven't seen anything else to the extent of, hey, there's official confirmation there. And in this day of information, I get it. It's understandable. But curious what you guys think. And we'll break it down. I'll keep you posted, kind of just going through Twitter, I guess, as things break or we learn more information. And got to get to the chat too. So let me do some shout outs here. Appreciate you guys for joining. KJ, what's up? Says go Birds. We're going to be okay. Trust me, next year will be Rocky Part 2. I hope so. Yeah. Can we get a Rocky Part 2? I don't know if we would. We've had a weird interim though, because I would say Rocky Part 1 was last year. So maybe we took a little bit of a spell there. But I'm fine with that. Hey, we have an extra delay. We knock off the champs next season. That's, I guess, as good as we can hope for now that the season is a loss. But shout out to all you guys again. Michael H, what's up? They'll resign Penny instead. Hopefully not. We got here Steve, go Birds. Again, Canucks Briz, congratulations. I appreciate that on the daughter. Cool Rains, go Birds. What's up? Mike Mooney, how's it going? Charles Minifee, S&K, Nicholas Walker, KJ Mason McCrae, what's up? Snow Goons, how's it going? Yeah, we get to as many as I can, but again, I'm curious to hear y'all's thoughts if this is accurate. And also, the word was that they were supposed to meet, I think, at 2:00 and 2 or 3 o'clock, something like that, and then maybe delays possibly with the weather, I'm assuming. But what if you're Jeffrey Lurie and you're in this situation, right? You're gonna have this conversation. We've seen it with Doug Peterson, so that's not a new thing there. We know that kind of this speculation, I would say, coming into it is hey, Nick's gonna have to make some changes, or he's gonna have to be open to making changes. So again, like we're talking about, the speculation is that Nick Sirianni would stay. We don't know officially, but if you're Lurie, what is, and I can understand all the trolling, because I'm not really much in favor of Sirianni coming back. I don't have a whole lot of faith, because we've seen the offense or the lack of offense that he has. But if we put that aside for a second, and even if you're against Sirianni, what do you say, or what do you expect, as Lurie, that you want Sirianni to stay to keep his job? I mean, is it just lip service? Is it hey, tell me what to do? Because we all know that Howie and Lurie love to insert themselves. So sure, if you just say whatever it takes, just beg, please. I did Office clip from the other day of, Dwight and Michael, and he's basically saying, I'll do your laundry for a month. Like, Sirianni probably is at the point, if he's going to keep his job, I'll do whatever. However, Lurie's delayed the meeting because, or supposedly delayed the meeting to give Sirianni some time to come up with a plan. Howie Roseman calling. There was reports of that. Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni calling coordinators across the league, figuring out who's going to be on the coaching staff, who might be potential candidates for offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator jobs, and then come together with a plan. Like, you want it as an owner, I'm sure. Never been an owner of anything, but I'm sure as an owner, you probably want your guy to take some initiative, even though, yes, you want changes and you want to say in it. But like, all right, what's your vision? Like, who are you bringing in here to fix this? But what do you say? Like, me personally, I don't know that Nick could say anything or bring in anybody to really be like, oh, hey, yeah, we're gonna get some changes. Because didn't he get like 7 games to figure out something? Like, wouldn't you question and say, like, what on earth gives me the reason to believe that we could actually turn this thing around? You had 7 games with this culture of a locker room that we're supposedly, like, happy about or saying that it's got a lot of potential, and then you don't have any differences. You're not able to change something. So that's just a little interesting to me. I'm curious of y'all's take. And yeah, I'll get to some on the chat here. All right, here's the Crypto Queen. I can appreciate it. I'm not ready to give up on Nick yet. People are insane. Well, I'm sorry. I can understand, hey, differences of thought, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. Maybe Nick proves me wrong, and I would be so happy about it because I've been a Nick Sirianni supporter, but it's just like, the more that I look at the breakdown of the offense and the lack of scheme and we know the locker room issues that I was talking about, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'd say while the going is right, like you've got a lot of other candidates out there that could be good potential fits for head coaching jobs and or offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, bring a different staff in, but you have to have massive changes. And we've seen that, like, Sirianni, I don't think that he's as polished of an offensive mind or offensive scheme as he might want to believe. So I don't know. We'll see. What's up to Real Talk Live Sports Podcast? What's up, bro? Congrats on all your blessings. Appreciate that. Really means a lot. Yes, I had the baby girl on Tuesday, and that was wild. It was crazy. Woke up in the middle of the night and rushed to the birth center, and in 2 hours we had her. So that was nuts. But appreciate all the support and people reaching out. Definitely means a lot. Depressed Eagles fan, what's up, man? I would like us bringing Denard Wilson back as DC. I love that idea. I think Denard Wilson would be fantastic. And Slay, probably most people know this, but Darius Slay effectively said, like, he would have been better than Matt Patricia and Sean Desai. Now, that's probably not saying a whole lot because there have been a lot of options better than Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. But yeah, if you could get Denard Wilson, it is just still the question of it didn't appear to be like an amicable split between the two. There were conflicting reports of, did Sirianni fire Denard Wilson? Was it a mutual separation? Either way, I mean, he goes to Baltimore and doing fantastic. So I would love to have him there. I was saying that he should have stayed and you should have brought him on, especially with what the guys did. And I guess also maybe the best like resume or part to his job is that Denard Wilson could say, hey, look, I made James Bradbury an All-Pro. And whenever I left, then you saw what happened. Like, we saw the difference. Now, sure, was it all Denard Wilson? Probably not. But I'd still say that there'd be a lot more effectiveness. So I'm in favor of that. It's just a question of, again, how much is Nick Sirianni going to be okay with that? Especially, I mean, if he fired him, like if I'm Denard Wilson, I'm saying, hey, sorry, bro, I ain't coming back. Like, when you're gone, sure, Jeffrey Lurie, want to give me a call? Like, I'll return to Philly then maybe, but not if Nick is there. Now, if they split mutually because it was like, hey, you're not going to get the DC job and now it's available, maybe, but it still feels like a slight because you had Nick Sirianni making the decisions and him saying, well, I basically didn't feel confident enough in Denard Wilson back then. So even if Sirianni could, I don't know what, eat a slice of humble pie and be like, Denard, I made a huge mistake. Like, we should have hired you. I still don't know. If I'm Denard Wilson, I'd be like, I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Because it can't be the only option, the only possibility for a job that he might get this offseason. At least that'd be my thought. Would love him, though. That would be great. What's up, Angelo Miller? Frank Reich. As OC with Sirianni, get a solid DC and the team is back to the Super Bowl. Give Swift another contract and we are back in it next year. Yeah, I mean, what do people think about Frank Reich? like you guys know, I've talked about him a couple different times, and I don't know if I'm the biggest Frank Reich supporter. Like, loved him whenever he was here in Philly, but personally, I think that there's other OC candidates that I would prefer over a Frank Reich. I know it was just Carolina; they didn't have the best options, but still, if you look at what he did, it doesn't just scream to me like, oh, hey, that's going to fix all of the issues. And is it too familiar with Sirianni? Where I don't know. Do you get too much of Sirianni still trying to input, trying to be available? Although, hey, I mean, again, this is the part where we're going in saying, like, speculation is that Sirianni is going to be staying. If you're just joining the broadcast here, there's not anything official from a Schefter or anything like that I've seen yet. We'll refresh on X and make sure, but I still haven't seen anything 100% there. But again, the question comes back to is like, who do you believe? What are the reports? Because to the standpoint or to the point of Frank Reich, if you haven't seen, Jacob Sports was reporting that Frank Reich is somehow involved in helping as like a quasi consultant of sorts, and basically saying like, hey, here's some potential good coordinators or candidates for these roles. If you believe that, I mean, that was Dan Cilio who first reported, I believe, and people took it and run with it. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not, because I don't know. I mean, there's speculation. Sometimes people are right, sometimes they're wrong. But just in general, I don't know. Frank Reich, to me, I feel like there'd be other candidates that I would be interested in over them, just because he has been here before, like I say, and I need like an earth shaker. I need something that is drastically different, not something that is, me personally, not something that's familiar. Bring in somebody else that we are not as familiar with, because it needs to be shaken up completely. We need to stop running this high school offense that we have. Nicholas Walker, what's up? Says, Nick is okay, but we have a championship caliber roster. Don't waste. That is totally agree that. Yeah, there's way too much talent. We know that. I mean, talent got you to 10-1. The issue was the coaching was so bad that you somehow got to the 10-1 point, and teams began to figure you out. And then the coaches were like, well, we can't save the talent. The talent has done so far. They've maximized what we can do, and now teams know how to shut it down, and you just made it that much worse. But I totally agree. Like, you could see the talent is there. Players need to progress, sure. Jalen Hurts needs to be better. I mean, I totally agree with that. I'm not against saying that Jalen Hurts needs to be better, that there's some concerns that he can't handle the blitz as effectively, or maybe he escapes the pocket too quickly. All that is true, but at the same time, like, he needs help. He definitely needs help. And if you watch the previous show that I did, I kind of broke that down and shared how terrible it is, and we all see it. But also the graphic. I mean, you guys may have seen this too. This is the let's see. I'll move Nick's comment here so you can see it a little bit better. But this is the graphic from the Tampa game. So the playoff game, I mean, not terrible stats-wise, not awful. But notice the middle of the field. And that is not shocking, not surprising, right? I mean, we know that Sirianni and the team and the group does not seem to scheme that open or do much over the middle of the field. But the really glaring issue, and I think they're the part that's telling, is not only do you look at that, but then let's look at a couple other quarterbacks. So here's Jalen Hurts, and oh, hey, Matt Stafford. Wow, well, what just changed right there? How many times are we attacking over the middle of the field? I know these are different defenses, but like, just in today's modern NFL, it seems like every single team can attack over the middle of the field except for the Eagles, whether it's by choice. Maybe Jalen doesn't prefer to do that, but I'm just saying we don't have very many options for that in the beginning. And there's Patrick Mahomes. There's another option in the freezing, negative 27-degree temperature, whatever it was, over the middle. And Baker Mayfield, which we obviously were very familiar with. You can attack that on the Philly defense. So again, I'm just saying that, yes, Jalen needs to be better. There are options for offensive coordinator, but you can make his life easier for sure. You can make it easier. Hopefully that's what Nick Sirianni does. We'll see. Like, I don't know. At this point, we're still only going off the one report from Anthony DeBona of Outside the Birds, which I'll throw up here again if you haven't seen it. But if, again, not official, not saying we know 100%, it's just kind of rumors and speculation. But I think that, like, me personally, I felt like, hey, Sirianni's probably going to be back. The later this is drug on, the delay, if you're wanting to be like in the hunt for these top candidates, you're going to just make a decision already, right? You're going to say, you know what? Hey, Nick, sorry. We're going to go ahead and cut you. We're going to let you go. We go after these other candidates because you don't want to miss out. And, again, we don't know official, but says here, based on the source, was told that Sirianni gets to stay, but there will be changes on the staff. So, not the best of news from me personally, but there's still something there. But it's Michael H says, doesn't Belichick hate Philly though? So there's in terms of Belichick possibly being an option, I know I've seen that, and it seems like vice versa. As far as Jeffrey Lurie not being too much in favor, there's reports of that as well. So I don't know. It's kind of, it's all over the place really. And Tomas, what's up, man? Says, but Josh, it's pointless. Hurts is not backing up Sirianni. He has not improved a bit comparing against last season. Yeah, I agree. I mean, he didn't really stick up for Sirianni initially. Now he did come back. If we're remembering from his what was it, like the players exit interview, the really long footage. If you haven't seen it, Eagles press conferences on YouTube has all the clips and everything. He did come back and kind of say like, hey, we're gonna fix this. To the effect of like me, Sirianni, Brian Johnson, we're gonna get this going forward or moving forward. The problem that I have is like, we've all heard this so many times. Is like, is it lip service? Are we going to see those changes, or is it just going to keep up by this point? So I don't know. It's frustrating to say the least. I'll say that. But we might just have to live with it. It's just, do you believe in Jeffrey Lurie and him being like, hey, you know what? I'm going to have whoever it is. Sirianni supposedly coming with these list of candidates and saying, this is my top option. If this doesn't work, hey, we're maybe going to go to these. We're going to schedule some interviews real quickly. This is what we're going to do. Plan for the offense. Here's what went wrong. It's pretty blatant and obvious, I think, to see what went wrong, but we can have the changes there. And then you see those. So will we see finally changes after 7 weeks of we heard the change and them saying like, oh yeah, we're going to be better. It starts with me. Sirianni saying it starts with me. Jalen, we're not playing up to the standard. Things will be better. We're making changes. We're going to start running the football. And what was it? You ran the football. I know we were losing, but still, like at the end of the first half, you had 5 carries, I think, at halftime. It's not good enough. And I'm surprised. Again, I know it's 7 games of terrible and the locker room culture awful. I know Kelce stood up for him. Fletcher Cox calling reporter a clown for asking the question. Like I understand the emotion, but to me, it's hard to defend. It's hard to say you're not going to do it. Bird Gang, what's up? He says he got to go. I'm with you. I think he does too. What's up, China? What's up? It says, hey Josh, how's Sandy and the babies? They are doing great. Appreciate you asking. Yes, for those that are new or just checking it out, had a baby on Tuesday, our second baby girl, and she is doing awesome. We are figuring out life, and my wife is amazing, and she was good with me hopping on here to stream for a bit. Not as able to do it as frequent with the recordings and the shows, so if you guys have noticed, they've a little bit of a dip, or do notice over the next, I don't know what it'll be. We're kind of figuring out the schedule, but next several days or weeks or however it is. But appreciate you guys, and we are doing awesome. William, what's up? Congrats on your new Joy, man. I think we need to clean house. Yep. I'm right there with you. I think that we definitely need to, but I don't know that we will. Maybe based on the report, seems like they're going to kind of stick with it. And hey, I understand the other thought, the other logic. It's not like I can't see the other side of the reasoning for it. With Mike Dim here saying asking to fire Nick, the highest winning percentage as a head coach in franchise history, is wild. The optics of it, sure. Like just to say, wow, you just fired a guy or might fire a guy, who has the highest winning percentage, took you to a Super Bowl, has shown, hey, pretty good at times. It looks good, yes, from the winning percentage, but at the same time, I think the writing's on the wall. You can't. I think it's a lot of more of the context of it. You can't just be like, well, hey, we've been successful, big picture. It's what are the major issues of the locker room and the culture and not being able to right the ship in really any form or fashion. Like the coaching just got worse and worse and worse. And I know the players were terrible, but like when you're talking about, hey, we need to really work on the fundamentals and we really need to work on our tackling in week 18, there's major issues. There's all sorts of issues. And I get we suffered some injuries and all these other stuff. But if Sirianni legit said, hey, Desai, like, I'm taking your play calling duties away, that's his call. If he did that and he moves in Matt Patricia, we saw how much worse it was. I thought it would be better. So I'm not I was totally wrong. I'll admit that. I was totally wrong. I thought Matt Patricia would help, and it was much worse. So I know it's only 7 games there, but it's so much more difficult there. I don't know that I could defend it. Alessandro's cheesesteaks are the Nick Sirianni PJ Tour kid. That's pretty good. The cheesesteaks. I've only had I'm trying to think 2 cheesesteaks. Maybe one from there in Ishkabibble. So I need to check out some more, obviously. But Nicholas Walker, what are you talking about? Look at our roster. Fire Nick. I know that has the thought process, or that's where it's been at. But China Sirianni has no choice but to humble after this season, for sure. Yeah, he does, without question. He's got to humble. He's probably the only way that I could see this. And again, I'm gonna keep refreshing, make sure we don't get an update. We don't have a official, although it is looking like Sirianni will stay based on some rumors and speculation and taking later into the day. The thought is that the only way that it works is Sirianni completely stepping back and saying, like, I'm not in this offense. Like, I'm done. And I just got a big scare of joy, actually. I almost fell for this. I'll go ahead and throw this one up there if you almost believed it for a second. Beware the trolls this time of year. My gosh, I was just about to say, whoa, we have it. And this is not. Just be careful. This is not legit, although it looks like it. Was going to share with you guys kind of the scare. This is not Adam Schefter. If you notice, it's Adam Schefter. So again, he's not been fired, despite what I thought I was just about to read there. I might have just... I was about to start screaming and yelling. I thought that was actually legit. See, that's the problem is this is the age of information where we know nothing. You look at a report and say, like, all of a sudden, it's real. Well, actually not. It's too easy to do that. That's the graphic and everything. Man, I literally thought that we had just let him go. It does seem like, again, speculation, seems like Sirianni's going to hang around. China says, Josh, what do you think about some people saying if we get a new head coach, it will make our organization look inconsistent? That's a good question. I mean, yeah, I've heard the argument there. I feel like it's tough because I get it. Yeah, like you're making quick changes. You're pulling the plug really fast. The hard part is, like, as much as, optics wise, I don't love it. I think that this is the place that they've kind of built, or the culture, I suppose, that they've built, because Howie likes to be involved. He likes to meddle, and Jeffrey Lurie likes to have some decision making and, be involved in these other areas. And, I don't know that any of us will ever know to what extent and how often that he's involved in those, but I don't know. I guess I would just throw another question back, or just argue, like, maybe they don't care too much. Maybe it's like, hey, we're going to get these first-time head coaches because we can mold them, we can shape them, we can kind of get them to do what we want. Now, I would prefer a guy who's not a yes man, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm the owner, you're the coach. You have all the controls, you can do what you want to. Yeah, you want a good GM, and Howie Roseman has made some good moves. He's also made some bad moves, and we can get into some of that in a second. But I think that this might just be the spot where that's what they prefer, because a lot of times they do go with a coach that's possibly not proven. I mean, look at Sirianni, it's his first time. Look at Doug Peterson. They want the emotional intelligence, but do they care as much about the X's and O's for a head coach in particular? Or is it more just like, well, we get the coordinators, but we want the head coach to possibly be yes man? Again, I don't know. I'm just speculating from what I've seen and what I would think. But yeah, if I'm another candidate, like a proven candidate, someone with an extensive resume, I probably would look at that and say, like, I don't know, we need to fill this thing out. Like, how much say does Howie have? How much say does Lurie have? Am I going to be micromanaged? Because, I mean, in my personal job, like, if I had to pick a boss, I definitely don't want a micromanager. I don't know how many of you guys want a micromanager. Does anyone naturally just sign up and say, hey, give me the boss that's constantly over my shoulder telling me what to do? Like that, I don't know that anyone naturally or automatically says that, but it does kind of feel like that's the situation that we're in, and certainly the culture here. Rich, what's up? Thank you so much, dude. You're always giving us good content. I appreciate that. Try to as best I can, but you guys are very much appreciated. All the support, everything there, no doubt. All right, let's get to some of these other comments here. Let's see. David, what's up? Hey, Josh, love your show. I think you're awesome. I got to be honest. I think we'll be just fine next year with Nick as long as we find the right coordinators to help him. Fly, Eagles, fly. I love the optimism. I think we can. Not totally against it, like I said, but that is remains to be seen as far as who they go with and how much Nick actually has to be there. Because like Nata says, Nick's an extremely high-paid cheerleader. I'm okay with that. That's what he needs to be. He needs to be an extremely high-paid cheerleader, basically. Like, he needs to be, more than that. We know that. But you know what I'm saying. Like, we don't want Nick Sirianni involved in the offensive game plan. We don't want him involved, really, I think, in any part of the game plan. You could argue he needs to be the guy that is a CEO head coach of sorts. Like, he's there. He can, give you the analogies of watering the plant and keeping it growing or whatever you want, whatever his, next line of talk is. Like, do that. That's fine. And if he wants to go up and make a fool of himself in front of press conferences, that's fine too. We know that half the things or more that he says is just to say the right thing or cover for some, but that's fine. Just get him away from the game plan. I don't want him, even though he loves the offense. And he's said that I was hired here because of my offensive scheme and creativeness and, all this other stuff. You want him to be that cheerleader. Like, that is a good thing if you're going to keep him around and go with other coordinators. Mr. Chris, how's it going? I'm sorry about the Quez not happening for you. Making the bet on the 180. That was close, right? What did he need him with? Like 15 yards, something like that. But Chris says here, I think Sirianni saw Steichen as a peer and Brian Johnson as an underling, so he felt he had to have his hands deep in the offense this year. That's fair. I could definitely see that. Yeah, certainly with BJ taking over for the first time, maybe it was either him thinking he needs to help him out, or what I kind of lean towards is the fact that Sirianni was saying, like, oh, this is my opportunity. Like, I can get back into this thing because Steichen, he didn't need my help, and it was kind of needed for me to back away. We saw the difference. Eagles were 2-5 before he made that switch, and then Steichen took over, and I think mostly the rest is history. But you need that continuity all over the place. You need it with him and also with Jalen. Because Jalen's admitted too, he hasn't had the same offensive coordinator except for Steichen since like high school. Like, that was his first year of having, somebody with or having someone as an OC for multiple years in a row. That's huge. I think, having that continuity, knowing what they're calling, the confidence to run it whenever they are, and just that voice in your ear. So I think that's big time. Mike M, what's up? How tall are you? I saw a pic of you and Thomas and thought I was looking at two NBA players. I don't know which pic you're referring to, I guess. I'm 6'3", so, I guess fairly tall compared to the average, but nowhere near your NBA size on that side. Actually, I'm the shortest of my brothers, so I've got 3 other brothers, and I'm the shortest, so I feel small around them, but I guess a little bit more than average. Let's get a super chat here. Casey Barnes, what's up? Super chat from Casey says, what are the odds we get Frank Reich for OC? Good move. Brought Big D, Nick, a Super Bowl win. Yeah, appreciate the abbreviating that too. Yeah, BDN was great with Reich. I talked about this a second ago, obviously, with Reich, and I feel like it might be too much familiarity. Like, I think Sirianni needs to back so far off of this thing, get him so far away from the offense where it's literally like, you know what, hey, we're trusting whoever the OC is, if you get a new passing game coordinator too, you bring in a couple different guys on the staff, let them run it. Like, should be essentially like you're bringing in some consultants, and Sirianni, you're still here, but these guys are in charge. Like, they're going to run it. They're going to do a deep dive analysis, and a lot of you, me, myself, or pets can figure out what was wrong this season, but they're going to do a deep dive analysis and say, this is what we should be doing, and this is what we should not be doing. And they need to have basically the keys to the castle. So I don't know. Frank Reich, yes, has been successful not the best, like I was talking about earlier with Carolina. So that's the part where I'm not exactly sure if I would get fully on board with, but they need a lot of different changes. They need several changes. They need the personnel is there, and Canucks Briggs, I think, says one of the biggest areas here that's a good point. Yes, they need pre-snap motion. That is without a doubt, because you're so far an outlier. It's a huge issue, and we all know that. But you have so many playmakers that if you put them in good spots, I mean, can you imagine the numbers that they're going to put up? Like, A.J. Brown could be ridiculous. Like, you don't get him the ball sometimes when you should be, even with just like slant routes, but you'd be able to get him in motion. You get Smitty in motion. Like, look at Smitty. If you haven't watched, go back and look at like just Alabama highlight footage, Smitty's Heisman year, and look at where he is and the motion that he gets put in, the dynamic offense. I get that it's college. I know it's easier, but I'm just saying, like, you get a guy like that in space, he's going to be even more effective. Smitty was great, and he was probably one of the only guys that was playing worth anything in Tampa. So shout out to Smitty there for, showing up. But you get him involved more that way, and you get motion offense. You get the running the football becomes better if you stick with it and commit to it. That's what I think that you need to see. And I don't know, motion-wise, are you going to get that change from Frank? You're going to have him come in here and would he be drastically different, or is it going to be something that's like, hey, we kind of know about what we're going to get here? Because maybe I'm wrong, but I think it needs to be so far out there that it is a wild change with getting players in the best spots and having a dynamic offense, because too many times it's like 4 plays. We're going to go up here. Hey, is it going to be a quarterback draw? Maybe. Is it going to be a wide receiver screen? Maybe. Handoff? Possibly. Or is it go routes against the blitz? Like, there's 4, maybe 5, a slant occasionally. You have five plays, and that's about it. Like, I know you stick with your bread and butter, but that's the whole reason of why the last 7 weeks were 1-6, and you couldn't really do much. You couldn't keep up with the other teams, and teams found it very easy to beat you that way. Wildebeest, no news is good news, hopefully. Yeah, I don't know. I would love for it to be. I guess it depends on what you define as good news. If we're talking about like Sirianni might be let go, then maybe. But I don't know. It's one of those that, to me, I feel like if you're waiting so long and you're Jeffrey Lurie, that you got to pull the plug. You got to go quickly, move on, start getting with other candidates. Yeah, and still no official update here. I will throw it up again though, just for anyone who's joining a quick second and hasn't seen this, but this is just the speculation, just the rumor. Anthony DeBone of Outside the Birds has a source of saying, I'm not reporting anything, just sharing what I was recently told regarding Nick Sirianni and his status as head coach of the Eagles. I was told he gets to stay, but there will be changes on the staff. So for what that means, your guess is as good as mine, but got to be at least with the coordinators. Get to the other super chat here. Let's see. What's up, Green Pickle 42? A.J. Brown is rumored to leave, isn't he? I don't think so. I saw like one tweet about it from somebody that, and this feels like one of those. What was it? Not Kabir. It's Kabir's brother, Baja Biamila, over the offseason. Derrick Henry, or trade deadline, Derrick Henry possibly coming to Philly, Howie trying to work out a move, and like we never heard anything about it. Maybe that was happening. Who knows? But that's so far speculation, and people, the hate for AJ or and I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying like from the media and the speculation and AJ being frustrated, like everyone was frustrated. Kelce said it, Hurts said it, just about everybody admitted it, so I can understand that side. But AJ's not going to leave. That would be ridiculous. I would be shocked. I don't know what I would be. That would be ridiculous, because you're talking about a guy who's on a team that, okay, yes, you don't like the play calling. Maybe it hasn't led to a lot of success. Certainly recently, it's very hard to get your yards, very hard to get your fantasy points. But hey, AJ did fairly decent even doing that. But it's your best friend in Jalen, and we saw how much fun and joy and excitement and everything else that they had last season. Not as much this year, but I know that you can get emotional in the game, and AJ probably would be the first to tell you that. But you've also seen him come back after being emotional and be like, hey, you know what? It got the better of me. We're moving forward, being a leader, being a captain. So that's where I feel like it's almost similar to Jason Kelce and, the reports of coming out of, hey, he's going to retire. And actually, we don't know for sure. Like, he may not retire. He said on the New Heights podcast, like that was not the way to do it, even though the media buzz, the media speculation saying for sure he's going to retire. He told teammates and things like that. I get that he's emotional, but even Kelce said, hey, that's not the right place. Same thing for I'm gone. I'm leaving this team. I'm so done with it. Whatever. Like, you could be frustrated, but I think at the end of the day, you say AJ, Jalen Hurts, they're together. They are best friends. They've said it a number of times, and you better believe, like, Jalen's going to him and saying, hey, we're going to fix this thing. Like, we're going to get this figured out. You already know changes are coming. And we go back to the Sirianni Lurie conversation. Like, for me personally, if I'm Lurie, and I would highly suspect that this is what he's talking about, my number one plan, my number one goal for the upcoming season, and what I need to hear from Sirianni is, how do you make Jalen Hurts better? How do you make his life easier? Out of anything else, I mean, forget anything else he could talk about or bring up. I know that the team holistically is great and all this, but it starts with Jalen, and everybody knows that because he's your franchise quarterback. But Lurie just opened up a pocketbook and saying, hey, here's $255 million. Like, that big investment there has better pay dividends. Like, that's probably one of the biggest issues on that side. And you say, hey, we made it way too difficult. We didn't put him in good spots. I think the last thing you do is say, we're getting rid of A.J. Brown. Again, there may be a little bit of frustration on his side, but I think it's ridiculous from, like, again, I the only thing I saw was like one tweet. I didn't see any other confirmed reports of A.J. wanting out of Philly and being done with it, everything. I know he deleted to go dark during the playoffs, but that to me would be ridiculous. Let's see. What's up? John Hay, Super Chat, $2. Appreciate it. Don't see a comment here, though, but if you have something, throw it back up there, and I'll read the comment. Do appreciate the Super Chat, though. Yeah, 72 V-Rod. The media is at fault for stirring the pot with the Eagles and players. Yep, and Kabuchi, what's up? We better not trade AJ. I don't think we will, though. I agree. I think it'd be very outlandish. I don't know what would be crazier if Brian Johnson staying or AJ Brown being traded. Did you guys see that too? There was a speculation that Brian Johnson might possibly hang around if he doesn't get a job as a head coach. You want to talk about crazy? AJ Brown being traded or Brian Johnson coming back as offensive coordinator? What would you do then if Brian Johnson comes back too? Dank Birds, I don't think guys have been here long enough to quit on the coach. Yeah, I know. I saw the possibilities of, guys doing that. I feel like probably not, but there's also the thought of, did they in my mind, they wouldn't do it for, and I've said this before, but for the veterans. You got Kelce, Fletch, BG, which it sounds like it might be Fletch. Fletch might be done. If you didn't hear Jordan Davis's interview, I mean, he flat out said, like, hey, enjoyed playing with Fletch. Sad to see it happen so early, and he essentially spilled the beans. I mean, Fletch hasn't said anything officially, but it does sound like that. Let's see. Here you go, John. Got your super chat here. In your opinion, who would be a good OC and DC? A good question. I have kind of gone back and forth on this, and to me, it feels like you have to also like temper expectations for what type of year it is, because I don't know if and I'm just gonna throw out a name here, but the if you've got who's the Texans? Oh, why am I forgetting it? The Texans quarterback coach. Is JJ, right? It's Jared Johnson. Yeah. So if you're like a guy like a Jared Johnson, for example, I'm just going to throw him out there. I don't know officially. I've heard speculation, but also there's rumors that a Jared Johnson is kind of similar to a Brian Johnson. So, but again, if you're a guy like that, I don't know if you necessarily are super quick to join on with Sirianni, because if I'm a guy, an up and coming, here's my opportunity. It's enticing, but it might feel like it's I don't know, maybe a little bit more of a risk to move to Philly, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that is, I think from the outside looking in, everyone would assume and agree by this point, like, hey, this is Sirianni's last chance. Like, he's got this next upcoming season to see what he can do. Can he right the ship? Can he turn things around? But if he doesn't, then like, there's no way Jeffrey Lurie keeps him around. Especially, I mean, if you have a season the way it ended, if you have a very struggling season, a mediocre one, and with the roster, I know the defense needs to get a lot of things fixed, and we can talk about that. But still, with the offensive unit that you have, if you have a season that is less than ideal, then Sirianni's gone. And then, like we've all seen, just about the entire staff goes with him. Like, whoever the new person comes in is, hey, he's going to bring over his own guys. That makes sense. So do you want to hitch like your career, your next chance to go on board with Sirianni, knowing that, all right, hey, maybe it works. And if it does, I'm going to have an even better job after this. I could parlay that into maybe a head coaching job, or, get a different role that's possibly a step up depending on where you move into. But it does say a lot, because you're not going into a place where you're like, well, hey, there's a head coach who we could have a losing season and they're not going to pull the plug immediately. Like, this is burning fire, hot seat. Like, Sirianni, you got to prove this thing and make it work this season. So with that being said, good offensive coordinator. I don't know. You have the possibility of like a Shane Waldron from Seattle, like what he did with Geno Smith. I wouldn't be opposed. Like, it would change some things. At least he's got better resume in terms of, can we get a little bit of motion? Can we do a little bit of things that might, I don't know, shake up the defense or make it somewhat confusing for a defensive scheme? Possibly. I would say he's probably towards the top of my list. If you're going to take somebody, if he's open to, I don't know, coming to Philly, does he want to, again, hitch himself to a Nick Sirianni in that situation? But it's a great unit. And you talk about, like, if he can do that with a Geno Smith, I don't know that any of us would say, like, is Geno Smith better than Jalen Hurts? Does he have a small part of his game? But like, if he can get Geno Smith playing at a good level this past season, maybe not so much, but you gotta, it feels like similarities of talent to a certain extent too. Like, Waldron's familiar with, hey, let's scheme open receivers. You got a DK Metcalf, you got a Tyler Lockett, you got a Smith and Jigba. Like, that could be a very good similarity there of saying, like, well, hey, the talent also blends with what this coach is used to doing. So he would, again, probably my favorite. But I've seen a number of names out there, and I honestly don't know. He's certainly over a Frank Reich. I know that's a possibility that, continues to get linked to the Eagles. Does he want to come back to Philly? And maybe it is just a fit where it's too easy for Sirianni. But like I've said before, and kind of throughout this, I would want to see somebody else who changes things and makes it drastically different for this offense, and that Sirianni isn't comfortable with. Because I want it to be, I want him to just have to basically step away and say, sorry, like, you're going to take this over. So the fact that Waldron has, ties to Sean McVay, or kind of coming from that scheme, I think it's always a benefit. So I guess if I had to say, probably Shane Waldron for OC. DC, I'm not 100% sure, honestly. Like, I've looked a little bit. I've said this much earlier whenever we were talking about this, I think during the national championship or whenever it was going on. Like, I like the idea of a Jesse Minter. It just feels like he'll probably go wherever Harbaugh goes, which, we're not going to get Harbaugh. I would be shocked. I don't think Harbaugh comes here and says yes, even if we get shocked, because I think it looks like Sirianni's going to stay based on rumors and speculation, like we keep saying here. But so Minter's probably out of the question. So out of the possibilities, do you get a guy who's ready to step back down from the ranks? I know that Ron Rivera is an option been thrown out there. I don't know what you guys think about Ron Rivera. Like, it's maybe not the worst. Surely could be better than a Matt Patricia or a Sean Desai in that instance. But culture-wise, is he the best? I'm not. I'll say this: I'm not totally opposed to it. I'm not like, oh, as soon as I hear that, it'd be the worst thing ever. But again, it's kind of like it's more so of where I'm tempering my expectation because of what we've seen. Does Brandon Staley make sense? I know that one's been reported or linked to Philly. There's so many names because you can just throw them out there and say, hey, Philly needs a defensive coordinator. Would this be a possibility? Brandon Staley, maybe, but there's also the previous situation with him and Howie Roseman that he was trying to get an interview or had an interview scheduled, then canceled it because of Howie Roseman. Not only because of Howie Roseman, he did have the liking of the Chargers and Justin Herbert for sure. But still, if you're looking at that optics, like I know it was an interview for head coach, but is he willing to come and be a part of that in Philly, especially seeing what happened and you're taking over a unit that, I mean, let's be honest, it's not near as dominant, it's not near as enticing as last season. I mean, if I was coming in for Jonathan Gannon, I would have loved Vic Fangio. It may not have made a huge difference, but I would have preferred it. Would have preferred over Sean Desai and would have preferred over Matt Patricia. But JG kind of screwed us in the way that he went about that. But I don't know. DC, those are kind of the couple names that I've seen and heard. I don't have as much of a strong take, I'll be honest, on defensive coordinator. It needs to change. We know that. But I'm going to have to probably look through and see other potential candidates. And what do you guys think? I mean, who are y'all's favorites for defensive coordinator, offensive and defensive coordinator? Let's get to a couple other super chats here too, and I'll get to some of the other comments. But King of Kings, what's up? Any big news yet? Just log in. Nothing yet. Nothing official. But I will say, if you missed it a second ago, the only thing that is kind of rumor speculation is Outside the Birds, Anthony DiBona just said, I'm not reporting anything, but I'm just sharing what I was recently told regarding Nick Sirianni and his status as head coach of the Eagles. I was told he gets to stay, but there will be changes on the staff, which was the text that he got from his source. So who knows for sure, again, if that's totally legit, but that's where we're at right now. And I have said this for a couple different shows, but it just does feel like the longer this plays out, that the writing's on the wall. Sirianni's going to stay. I don't think that you're an owner of a great organization like the Eagles and Jeffrey Lurie and say, we're going to let this thing drag on, especially because of how last season played out and you missed out on a Vic Fangio because you had to, that was more so not really your choice, JG screwing us, but still, you learn from that and say, if we're going to make a move, we make it now. We start interviewing candidates. But it does look like Bill Belichick will be off the table, at least based on some trending in that direction. He's got a second interview with Atlanta that he had, so might end up Atlanta Falcons. It's kind of a surprising one, I guess. I assumed that Belichick might go somewhere else, but could be having Bill Belichick coaching Ritter and Bijan Robinson and those guys. It'd be interesting. Another super chat here. The Great, what's up? Says, keep Nick, make changes on staff, go young, got to look at the bright side. I could go on, but I would need to be behind a mic. LOL. I appreciate the optimism, though, and appreciate the super chat as well. Hey, it feels like they're going to keep Nick. So that, I think, is going to happen. They're going to reportedly, but then also we know this, they need to make changes to the staff. So go young. The only downside that I would say is, like, are we going to be back in this same scenario? Is it going to be a situation where let's say, for example, let's say we hire whoever it is. Let's say we hire good OC and DC, right? And then they do a great job. Aren't we back in the same position? Because if you hire someone and they have a great year and Jalen back to MVP form, the offense is, top 3, top 5, defense is much better, still maybe, let's not say they're phenomenal, but let's say they're like top 15, top 20 even, for what we've seen recently. But let's say you're just average. Like the OC is probably for sure getting poached, and the DC might even be poached. And then we're just rinse, repeat this same season, the same situation, because Sirianni just is not the man for getting the offensive game plan and the scheming and the play calling. So I agree that if you're going to keep Nick, you have to make those changes. It just feels like it's a short-term solution to a long-term problem, and you're going to constantly get poached because, hey, the best guys get jobs, and the best guys end up getting head coaching jobs. And, some guys can handle the head coaching position, but then some of them have to bounce back and come back around. I don't know. That's my mindset there at least. Anish David, what's up? Says Slowick, if Sirianni goes, I would love that. Just take the chance there. I mean, what he did with C.J. Stroud, Texans offensive coordinator, for those that may not be as familiar. But yeah, if Sirianni does happen to get fired, you have to for sure interview him. You have to fill that out, see if it could be a difference, and then give him the reins. Let him take over there. Bailey Young, what's up? Denard Wilson need to be our DC. We should never let him go to the Ravens as our DB coach. Yeah, I agree. I am totally with you there. That was definitely a mistake, and one that we naturally and obviously regretted. I think you saw what he was able to do with a lot of the guys that we could not do this season, unfortunately. So, let's see. Oh, I think I missed a super chat here. Let me make sure to go back to Delirium. Appreciate the super chat. Says, what are some key free agents you think we should target? Also, congrats on Little One. I appreciate that. It is exciting times. We're figuring out life right now. But yes, key free agents that I think that we should target. I'm going to be honest, I haven't done a whole lot of looking of free agents being available. So I'll pull it up right here and see. I did look at some linebackers, and unfortunately, linebackers are thin, and so that's where I was talking about, like, hey, as much as we're probably not going to see it from Howie Roseman, I'd love for drafting a linebacker. Figure something out, get a linebacker. Defensively, you got to shore a lot of spots up. So, there's some guys that and if we're talking about as far as on the defensive side, we know that cornerback wise, I mean, is James Bradbury, is he really going to come back? You're talking about a $12 million cap hit, but surely he wouldn't, right? I think Jalen Johnson could be one of the biggest targets, but would Howie spend more money on he should spend more money on a corner. I believe in Keely Ringo. I think that there's a lot of promise there. He showed it late in the season. I think Eli Ricks has some potential for sure. He had his moments. They're rookies too, so yeah, they had some mistakes. They had some issues, but with this defense here, you gotta figure it out with a corner. So Jalen Johnson would be awesome if you do get him. It might be a bidding war that Howie just says, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get a UDFA again. We'll try to make sense of that. Maybe we can. I can't imagine that he'll believe in James Bradbury, but maybe he's like, well, we still got him on the books, so let's see if we can get as much out of him as we possibly can. But I would say the corner position is one that you'd want to target. And unfortunately, linebacker, because Howie doesn't value linebacker, but there's not a lot of great options in that position too for as far as free agents go. I mean, just looking at the possibility of guys that you're talking about too. I mean, the question too becomes like, how much is he willing to pay those guys? But you saw that it hurt you. And brings up a good point too, talking about linebackers. TJ Edwards, did you guys see the report? Howie Roseman, in fact, did not offer TJ Edwards a contract. So for those that were saying back before, I'd made the mention of that's, big L on Howie's part. Should have made an attempt, should have offered him more money. And I know the comments were like, hey, he did. And TJ Edwards signed the first 15 minutes and, he wanted to go to Chicago, back to his hometown, be close there and all that. That makes sense. But I was just saying, based on what we knew or didn't know, that it was a miss, and Howie devalues the linebacker position too much. Again, we could talk about like the best teams that use linebackers, and the Ravens and the Niners, but Howie just doesn't seem to do that. But I didn't know, there was speculation, but didn't know for sure of what the official word was. But again, if you believe the report, apparently, according to Clay Harbor, says per a source, Howie never even offered TJ Edwards a contract when he wanted to stay in Philly. TJ Edwards wanted to stay in Philly. However, no extension talk, no contract when he was a free agent. Definitely came back to bite them. It's kind of crazy. Could be conflicting reports, so that's the hard part of knowing where the truth fully lies. But I'm just saying, if Clay Harbor is telling you he's definitely got some connections naturally. Being in the NFL, having kind of a pulse over the team and knowing between both the Eagles and the Bears, like, I don't know. I'm just saying, if that's legit, like that is one of, if not the worst misses, as bad as James Bradbury was a miss. I know that might be worse, but in your mind, where is that at? How bad of a miss is that? And do you believe it? I guess you believe that Howie didn't offer him at all. I would say that's egregious if he didn't. $6.5 million. You could have him for so cheap, but he chose not to pay it. In fact, I'll get to a super chat here in 1 second. I'm going to throw this one other one up from Shane Half, who kind of put it into perspective on the misses and what it cost you. But here's a fun fact. Shane Half had him on the show too. We'll probably have him on again for film breakdown and everything. If you're not following Shane, go do that. But he says, fun fact, James Bradbury is going to almost cost more in dead cap over the next 2 years than TJ Edwards will cost the Bears over the duration of a 3-year contract. Oh, yeah. He also had another good year in Chicago as well. So, yeah, kind of like we're talking about. That's a tough pill to swallow. Let's see. Go to these other super chats here too. Kenny, appreciate the super chat. What's up? Says, if Nick is kept, good coordinators have to be chosen, but then they leave to become head coaches, and we're back to square one. Exactly. I am right there with you. That is what I'm talking about. It's not solving the long-term solution. As sad as it is, you're recreating this I don't know, this issue that's going to continue to pop up because either you're successful and, like we talked about, you're successful, you just keep having him poached, or you're unsuccessful and then you eventually fire him and the coordinators and everybody else anyway. So hopefully, maybe you get a Super Bowl out of it. It's effective for temporarily, but then I think you have to address it from a much larger issue. That's at least my mind. But no, I'm right there with you. Appreciate the super chat. Let's see. Here's another one. James says, Georgia Bulldogs DC could be available. I know the Eagles had him as an option last year. Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, when did I'm trying to think, when did they, I guess it was right around the time that they had interviewed Jim Leonard, and Desai was obviously later. They had a couple other interviews. But yeah, Glenn Schumann, possibility for defensive coordinator. That could be interesting. That's good point for, the Georgia connections. We've seen that all over the place. You get a guy who's familiar with them, maybe to get the most out of those guys. Can he keep Jordan Davis underweight? Not have to fine him from tipping the scales as maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but reports of possibility Jordan Davis being overweight, and did he not play as effectively towards the end of the season? Who knows for sure. But yeah, I would expect he could get a lot out of him. Just curious to know those conversations again, because how much does it become Sirianni being involved in the offense? Like, I know he's not in the defense. I know he's not a defensive mind, but I think he has an idea of how he wants the defense to play. I really do. I think it's you go in there and like, hey, if you're too aggressive, maybe not. He doesn't want necessarily, defense just kind of needs to be there to be enough, but not to be like super aggressive, doesn't want to give away the big shots, the big plays, because as an offensive mind, I think he goes in there and being like, how would I stop myself? Like, maybe I'm wrong. That's just my take, but I feel like he's more involved in that defensive decision-making, and maybe that's why they didn't go with him. Possibly you'd go with a Sean Desai because it's more of a, hey, he said what I wanted him to say, and he's a guy that's an option there. But I'm just curious because I don't know if this will be a, hey, Sirianni's going to Lurie and saying, here's my top picks as OC and DC, and they're proven guys, or they're, here's my top picks as OC and DC, and again, they're essentially just yes men that you're going to go along with whatever scheme I want. I can't imagine that Lurie's going to be like, yeah, let's do that. We just had a year of that. Let's try it again. Let's just get some different faces, but same result, same scheme. Appreciate the super chat, though. Dink Birds, how's it going? Says, if we fire Nick, we're in the same boat of having new coaches. Yep. How long until we want the new coach fired? 4 seasons. It'd be like Carolina firing coaches. Or Carr firing coaches. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's the same recurring issue. It's like with everything else in life. Do you just patchwork, or do you just go get it fixed entirely? It's just like you got a flat in a tire. You temporarily get it solved where you just keep filling it up with air, and every single time you're like, man, I got to go once every couple days. Or you just go ahead and say, let's scrap the tire. Let's move on. Let's get a different tire here. We got a lot better options. Or in fact, let's just scrap the entire car. Let's just move on and get everybody else in there. That's where I would lean to, because you can make a lot of different changes. And there's great candidates available in terms of head coaches. Like, that doesn't happen. There's always, 2, 3 candidates that you could say, okay, that's a good possibility. But the options that are still out there, because guys have not been hired yet, maybe you're getting late in the game to get in the interview process, but they're still there. If Lurie truly wanted it and was not opposed to having a guy who comes in and maybe wants a little bit more of a say in things, like a Belichick, if you want that, or like a Jim Harbaugh, if you want him on that side. Even a Mike Vrabel. Vrabel would be interesting. I wouldn't mind Vrabel. Defensive mind, defensive coach. He might be out of the ones that feel like he wouldn't be necessarily a yes man. He feels like the most likely, in the sense of, he doesn't necessarily need control over player personnel, and that's burned him obviously in Tennessee, where he said they're not going to get rid of AJ, and then a few days later they do. But I think that could be a possibility. He is the favorite according to betting odds, so if you're throwing any money on it, go ahead. But I think it was minus 150 was the last time that I heard was the results of where the odds stack up if Nick Sirianni is fired, is that Mike Vrabel was minus 150. So possibly sprinkle a little action on it. Robster, yeah, there you go. Here's a shout out for Shane. Highly endorsed. Yeah, speaking of Shane, his last pod with Johnny Page on the Shane page, maybe want Nick gone. I was on the fence before. Yes, absolutely. Go check out that if you haven't already, on the Shane page, the Bleeding Green Nation pod. And we will have Shane on again too, schedule-wise and everything else. Shane's great, but very good breakdown of, like you said there, Robster, why you probably wouldn't want Nick to stick around. Annette, are we getting rid of Nick Cheerleader or Wheat? We don't. Let me refresh. Let me make sure. But it's only speculation so far. We don't have any official reports. I've been refreshing Twitter to make sure and see if there's anything. But there's not anything official. Although the rumor and speculation is that Nick Sirianni will stay, based on Outside the Birds, who has a source who said that Sirianni is likely staying, but they're going to change the coaching staff. So that leads me to believe that, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator are gone, and then you figure something out outside of that. But what the discussion we've been having is, who do you want if that does happen? And does that really fix the issue? Because you still have the same guy in charge, which means if you have a short-term success, then those guys are going to get poached, and then we're back to where we were. That's where I'm at least. All right, get to us a couple other super chats here. Anonymous 3576, appreciate it. It says only way to keep Sirianni is if we get career coordinators, Reich, Wink, where they don't get poached, and we can build a dynasty. Need hardened culture. All right, I like that. That's not it's not a bad idea. You'd need someone that is, but I don't know. Do you think Reich? That's a good point. Maybe is Reich finally where he's kind of like, hey, I'm just gonna stick at OC, because he's gone with the head coaching gig. He has done that. It's not the worst solution yet. If you have someone who is willing to be like, hey, you know what? No matter what, even if we have success, I'm sticking around. This is my role. I'm staying in this part. I don't love Reich. I will say that. Not that I hate him, like I was saying earlier, but it's one of those deals. I don't think you fix it long term with a different name, but I would want someone who maybe like a Shane Waldron as far as the OC, but it's still, if he has a great year, he's going to get a head coaching job. That's the way the NFL works, as we know. You do well, and sure, naturally you move on up. But it's not a bad point. If you want something, I love the longevity of, you see organizations, obviously we have him on our team, but you think of like if Bill Belichick's going somewhere, who's he bringing with him? And as much as we may not like them and Matt Patricia being terrible, but like if Bill Belichick goes somewhere, the speculation is, and I wouldn't be shocked if all of a sudden you see, hey, Bill Belichick's been hired by the Atlanta Falcons and Matt Patricia goes there, and we have Josh McDaniels that goes there, and maybe he brings even a few other names with him that are almost always synonymous with Bill Belichick. But the difference is like he knows how to get the most out of those guys in almost every situation or every case. And so that's his group. Those are his guys. And you see it more often than not. Now, again, it's been less promising without Tom Brady, so you could go to an argument there of who really made the difference. But still, it's like it does feel like there's more of a, hardened culture, like you're talking about, a difference being made because you have those guys that you can count on year in and year out, instead of, okay, Sirianni's going to be here, but like who else is going to stay? Michael Clay. Kudos to Michael Clay, though. I shouldn't fire shots at Clay. He did great. I was knocking him after last year, and I was like, man, that dude needs to be gone. And hey, thankfully he stayed because he was the one bright spot. The special teams group, as much as I expected it to be miserable, was good. It was actually really good. So I know guys can change. I don't know, as far as offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, is that what you want? Kenny, the super chat says here, 2 questions. How convincing can Nick be in explaining to Lurie his adjustment strategy, and how many OCs is Jalen going to play with before they stick to one? That's a great question. I don't know what Nick could say. Again, I asked this before, but like seriously, what do you say? What do you say to Lurie if you're Nick Sirianni? And how do you buy it if you're legit Jeffrey Lurie here and he says anything? How do you buy it and say, hey, yeah, that's going to be different? Okay, cool. Oh, I didn't think about that. That's a good point. We'll turn it around. I don't know. In my mind, I can't think of anything. Unless Nick goes in and says, hey, I'm just going to resign. It's just not going to work out. I think it'd be just there's not much, again, that I feel like he could say. Now, for OCs, that's also another good point. You need somebody. You need somebody that Jalen can be coached, groomed, mentored with, and be there for multiple seasons, because it's incredibly hard. Very difficult for a quarterback. Any quarterback, look at any quarterback who has to deal with a offensive coordinator. I think most of us know, like, and even heck, if you play fantasy football, like, you say, oh, new offensive coordinator. My first thought whenever I'm playing is like, maybe not draft that guy. Maybe not take him to their team, at least first year, to let him get acclimated. Then all of a sudden you take off and you're like, all right, we're going to go with that. But first year, it's tough. It's difficult. So I can give him a little bit of a pass, but you got to find somebody who can stick around. Let's get to some other comments here. Let's see. We got Clayton James. What's up? Says definitely want Al Harris. That could be good. Turn some things around, although, you have the play calling duties, the experience there on that side. Possibly that's that's one of the concerns. But again, the sad part is I feel like any speculation or any candidate at this point is probably, I'm going to be like, that's a good possibility. It's going to be better. Can't be much worse. But I do like the ability, the aggressiveness. Like, that's what I want, someone who's going to come in and be aggressive. I'm tired of the back up 10 yards, allow the offense to march down the field easily, make it way too easy. You got to get something going. And can we get someone who's going to make sure and have the D lineman rush the passer? Like, don't drop Hassan Reddick back and forth. Like, that is the most ridiculous thing ever. You have a guy who's a stud and can rush the passer, and you're going to drop him back into coverage time and time again. It just, no sense. I know that other players do it. I know that other teams do it, but to the number that we got Matt Patricia dropping back Hassan Reddick was so infuriating. I was so done. You guys know that watched the live stream, the broadcast. We were done by that point. Zanette says, Mike Vrabel or Eric Bieniemy. I like Vrabel. Not sure on Eric Bieniemy. Like, it's not an immediate no, but if you're gonna, and I'm assuming we're talking about head coach, but wouldn't mind Vrabel. Chris Scott also says Mike Vrabel. I think he's viewed positively by the players, but at the same time, too, like, going to be one of those leaders. Not that Nick Sirianni isn't, but maybe a little bit less of a. He's got the players back, but a little bit less of that cheerleader and more of just kind of that leadership presence. I don't know. Kenny Slowick for head coach, Denard for DC is perfect for me. I think I think Denard would consider coming back. We talked about it earlier, but Denard Wilson, it's total speculation or total guess on my part, but I would just feel like he wouldn't want to come back to Sirianni after being mutual disagreement or Sirianni firing him, whatever the truth was behind that. But if Sirianni leaves and you get the DC job, sure, he would take that. That would be good in my opinion. Then you have a head coach who is an X's and O's, assuming that Lurie and Howie Roseman want that. They don't want to just implement their own scheme because the analytics department loves to do what they do. They love to drum up stuff and leave reports on coach's desk and say, do this or do that. So how much are you going to get in that situation? But I'm just saying, like, you get Slowick, that feels like it's a possibility to have someone more long-term because then, yeah, if you get your coordinators poached, it's not like you're saying, oh, well, we have this person who can't drum up an offense, who can't dial up plays or call plays or be effective in any situation. So at least you'd have that from Slowick's side and then also Denard Wilson as a defensive coordinator, somewhat long-term. He'd get snatched up, I'm sure, by somebody for head coach eventually. Michael H. says, forgot about Michael Clay. Yeah, that guy, I mean, I feel sorry for him because he gets railed whenever it's like, hey, you're doing a bad job and, no one likes you. He reminds me of, I don't know if this is, people may not, I don't know how popular of a movie this is. It's not like totally out there, but Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you remember, what's his name? Booster, I think, like the pink furry dude or whatever. And he's like, no one likes you, Booster. So I don't know why. That's where my mind goes. It's weird, but that's who he reminds me of because like nobody go to the press conferences and like look at the number of views when all the other coordinators talk. You get like multiple thousands numbers of views and like there's Michael Clay and it would be like 700 people tuned in to watch his press conference. But it's special teams. What is he really going to say that's riveting? But still, I felt bad for him because I'm like, yeah, love to hate on it whenever it's going bad. But when it's doing positive, I think it's a sign of a good special teams. Maybe it's just the fact that nobody's talking about it. It's not making headlines. It's like, all right, you're doing good. It's solid. Get to some of the other comments here. Let's see. Stoney, what's up? Says, if it was really Sirianni's offense, why get rid of Johnson? Wouldn't be repeating this year if we get a new OC, if Nick is still running things. Yeah, wouldn't we be repeating this year? Yeah, possibly. That's the thought. Like, again, the only way this works is in my mind is if Sirianni's staying, which it feels like that's what we're going to get at this point, but Sirianni stays and the OC is just given full reins. Like that's the only way that things truly change. And surely that's what Jeffrey Lurie is telling him is like, hey, look, that's what we're doing. We're not going to stick here and just let you keep doing the same thing. Sirianni, you can dial up the offense. You can have the scheme, give so-and-so 4 plays to call and that's it. No answer for blitzes. No answers for most of the situational football, even though that's been a lot of things that Sirianni said. But not having an answer for it, like, no, there's no way that it's going to be a difference unless you get rid of your OC and you say we're going to give this one last shot, but it needs to be Sirianni. You just bow out of all play calling, all game plan scheming, everything. You just become a CEO, head coach. Yeah, like Jay says here, do these people watch games? Mostly all the routes are 10 to 15 yards. Teams figured out the blueprint. I don't care who the quarterback is, long developing routes with pressure in 2 seconds flat. You ain't doing nothing. No doubt. You're not helping yourself. I don't care who the quarterback is. We've talked about it before. Like, you swap Jalen Hurts, swap Brock Purdy for people saying, hey, Brock Purdy's phenomenal. Swap them, put him in the offense. Purdy's not doing as good as Jalen. I know Jalen wasn't good, and he needs to be better. I'm not just going to be all positivity with Jalen, but yes, the offense can make it so much easier. Fitness Warrior Josh, how can Nick explain the route tree of the team all year? I don't know. I don't know how he can explain a lot of things. I'm preparing myself, or kind of already prepared, to be irritated, annoyed, shocked, surprised. I don't know, whatever it is, but that we're going to keep him. But I don't know what you say to Lurie and get him to believe either, of like, because he's got all the analytics. Again, he's very up to date on it. He loves his analytics. So surely, but his eye test of being at every game, watching all the games, being at a lot of the practices, seeing the guys perform or not perform, and then you get the analytics report. I don't know how a guy could come in there and save the job, even with the resume that he has. I know that he has a great record, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to say, so we didn't think about changing this, or we felt like for some reason what we were doing for the entire season was going to work. Twisty says, I miss Deuce. Wish he would have come back and have the run game running smooth again and actually getting used to it. Yeah, that would be... it'd be good to have the running game. I think that's got to be another part of it too, surely. If you're talking to Jeffrey Lurie, like, what are you going to change? It's got to be run the ball, have that effectiveness. You're probably going to lose some. You are, but you're probably going to lose, as much as I hate to say it, I feel like Jason Kelce probably. So you're going to slide over Cam Jurgens to center, Tyler Steen probably your right guard, Landon Dickerson, Mailata, Lane Johnson. Like, you're pretty solid there, but you got to draft, I would think, one tackle or guard. I would think probably a tackle in the first couple rounds, and then commit to running the football. Even if it's not DeAndre Swift, I would love for you to re-sign DeAndre Swift, but we know Howie Roseman just does not do that. No extensions for running backs, so we probably won't see it from that sense, but run the football, establish the run, and then you could pass off of it. That's what I would love to see, but I know some of the numbers are skewed. I've seen some arguments that way, because whenever you're playing against a team that, like, we got up in so many games. I know it wasn't all of them, but we got up in so many games 2 seasons ago versus this season. And yeah, it's a difference when you're up by 21 and you can say, all right, hey, we're just going to run the football down your throats and there's no change because we're just dominant, and you got to account for that because we've been so successful through the air. It makes it much easier. I get that, but you have to have changes all across the board. And this team, when we're successful, we all know this, and it's not like, surely Sirianni knows this too, Lurie knows it, everyone knows this about Eagles football. When we're successful, you run the football. Like, we're complementary. We're going to run the football. Don't give me the whole extensions of the passing game, or, hey, we can work in different solutions. Hey, when we throw a screen pass, that's basically a run. No, we saw the screen passes. We saw the other options. I don't care. You run the football as a regular running the football. There's no variations of it, and you become dominant with that. That's what they have to get back to. Although, by the way, I was trying to be sarcastic, so for those that watched the previous show with the screen comment, sorry if I fooled you there, confused. That was not the intention. It was just trying to go for some sarcasm of the 690 screen plays and negative, 26 yards. But, it's obvious whenever you do the math that it's not legit. I just didn't clarify it. I just kind of threw that out there and kept moving on. And then whenever I watched it back myself, I was like, oh, okay, that didn't land exactly how I wanted it to, but hopefully it wasn't too bad. Super chat here. 10Z, appreciate it. Says a perfect spot for Bieniemy as OC, could really show his talents to other NFL teams to be a head coach if he turns the Eagles into an offensive powerhouse. No doubt. It's a great audition. I mean, especially for offensive candidates. That's why I say it's like if you can come in, there is a risk because you're tying yourself to Sirianni and saying like it's probably a 1-year audition. Like you're not going to get multiple opportunities. You're going to just sit there and go like, this is it. Like we have to make playoffs for sure. And I guess curious too, like I'll throw a question out here and interested in what y'all think, but what does it take? These are hypotheticals, but like let's say that Sirianni stays because it feels like it's trending that direction. What does it take for Sirianni to stay next year? Like what is a successful year? I don't know that you necessarily say, well, you better win the Super Bowl or you're getting fired. But like, what does Sirianni need to do? What does Jeffrey Lurie think that he needs to do to stick around for a year beyond next season? It can't just be make the playoffs. I don't believe it can be that. It's got to be what? Win one playoff game? Make the NFC Championship game? Or possibly make the Super Bowl. You don't have to win it, but you better at least make the Super Bowl. I think personally it'd be you got to win one playoff game. Make the playoffs and win one playoff game. Then he'd be fine. If he makes the playoffs, you lose the first round, you're gone. But yes, it's a good point 10Z brings up. It's an opportunity, and if I'm a coordinator who's getting let go in the sense of Bieniemy, who's assumably out the door with the previous regime and trying to find a spot, there's a lot worse spots to be able to try to, I don't know, jumpstart your career or parlay that into your next coaching gig or get a head coaching job like you're talking about. A lot worse spots than Philly. You give me Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, this O-line, even without Kelce, who I would expect is going to be gone, but even if he does, this O-line, maybe you get a running back late rounds in the draft, have Kenny G. I'd be signing up for that. There's not a lot of opportunities better than Philly to be able to come over and prove yourself. So yeah, if I was an OC looking for a real quick resurrect, I would jump on that. It still, though, again, it comes down to, is it a fully, like, you get the full reins picture, or it's you come over and you see what Sirianni's doing? Because people see the difference. Like, let's talk about Brian Johnson for a second. Again, appreciate the super chat, but like, let's talk about Brian Johnson. People legit are interested in Brian Johnson, whether you want to believe that or not. Like, teams are interested in Brian Johnson as a head coach. It blows my mind. Like, it's hard to believe, but they are. Because he keeps getting interviews. And I know the initial reaction is, well, it's just the Rooney Rule, but it's not exactly, though, because he's doing interviews, and he's doing several of them on virtual interviews, which, if you weren't fully aware, virtual interview does not count for the Rooney Rule, so it's not just a checking the box. And as Bleeding Green Nation was sharing here, people that are just throwing out the Rooney Rule requirements is the only reason that he's getting interviews ignores Johnson's accomplishments prior to the 2023 season. Johnson was getting a lot of offensive coordinator buzz around the NFL last year for his role in helping Jalen Hurts make a massive leap in 2022. Johnson previously oversaw the development of Dak Prescott and Kyle Trask at the college level. The Panthers and Titans are likely intrigued by the idea of Johnson being able to help maximize their young quarterbacks in Bryce Young and Will Levis, which also I believe the Falcons had interviewed or would be interviewing, and then also ignoring how the interested teams have already requested interviews with other minority candidates. So, yeah, multiple reasons there. They've already interviewed minority candidates, so it's not needing to check a box anymore, but also the fact that there's virtual interviews going on, which don't count. And you have, as much as I'm still kind of surprised, I wouldn't hire BJ myself. I hope we do. I hope he gets hired because then you get 2 third-round draft picks for him. But that really tells you all you need to know about, yes, it's Sirianni's scheme. And if other teams, if other owners, other GMs are, helping the owners and helping get these lined up for interviews and player personnel and development and everything else like that, if they're willing to say, hey, let's take a look at Brian Johnson after what they saw, I think that tells you all you need to know about the rest of the league can tell this is a Sirianni issue. So if I'm an OC looking at getting that job, that's where I got to know for sure. I got to know 100%. You're giving me the keys to the castle here. You're not just going to say, well, you can come on board, but Sirianni is still going to be the one to devise the game plan. Because then I'd be like, oh, well, sorry, because we know what that's going to do. Get the other super chat here. James, appreciate it. $2 super chat says, wish we could see the 1-2 punch with Swift and Penny. Yeah, I don't know. I was so wrong about Rashad Penny. I would love the 1-2 punch with Swift and then, maybe somebody else, but I think I got enough runs to see that Penny's just not what he was. I was hopeful much earlier in the season that we could have gotten that test, and possibly the one area that the coaching staff was right on was Rashad Penny not being ready or available or going to be near the production that we've seen. But I think dude's just lost a step, and he can't block worth anything too. That's another point. Like he might be the worst pass blocking running back in the league. That is just atrocious when he's out there on the field. So if you're trying to run anything, I think they knew that, and that's another big issue for not being able to play in a lot of spots. But yeah, I would love some sort of a 1-2 punch. It just feels like it wouldn't be Rashad Penny. If you could do like DeAndre Swift, re-sign him, I don't know what it's going to cost, and we talked about is how he going to do an extension? Probably not. But you do DeAndre Swift, Kenny Gainwell, I'd be all right with that. That should be more than enough. You have the offensive talent and game plan, if you get a new OC in here, to be able to be incredibly effective. Like there are a ton of other teams that have been able to do a lot more with a lot less talent. So that should be plenty. But yes, you need a 1-2 punch. You got to get the running game going. It's just kind of confusion on that side. Speaking of the running game, though, let's see. Slick, appreciate the $5 super chat. A very good point here that Slick brings up. Optics, again, talking about Bieniemy, but he says Eric B would be bad choice because the Commanders threw the ball 63% of the time. We would never run the ball with him as OC or head coach. That is a fair point. Yes, running the football a ton, whether it was, Andy Reid kind of calling plays more so with the Chiefs, but passing the ball a ton there too, also passing the ball last season 63% of the time with the Commanders. That would be an issue. We'd probably be saying that's a good point you bring up. But still, just talking about like from Bieniemy's perspective, like I would be all over Philly's offense. Get to come in here, pass the ball a ton. I got better options, better talent with Philly. But yeah, the moment that we start saying, well, okay, great, we're passing the ball 63% of the time or 65% of the time, I think we all be like, do we really want this? Do we really want to keep this game plan up? Worked out in an Andy Reid offense because that's what normally happens, but I don't know that's the issue there. Let's see. Gonna check and make sure as there's updates here. Make sure we're not missing anything on breaking news. Because don't be trolling here in the chat. Are we ink? I'm not seeing anything. You guys almost got me though. Yeah, still not seeing anything. Even though I did see that fake tweet a while ago of someone pretending to be Schefter and saying Sirianni's fired. Speculation is that Sirianni's staying so far. From the last that we heard and saw, Sirianni, from a source, is likely staying. And again, not from Schefter, not from multiple outlets, so we don't know for sure. But yeah, don't do that. I saw that ink, and you almost got me. Fitness Warrior Josh, did you ever hear the players say Nick was a good play caller? I can't recall. The only thing really that even came out again is from the media on that side, but saying that what multiple players questioning the play calling. We got that a number of times in games. And then also to the point of players didn't even know who the plays were coming from. Sometimes it's from Brian Johnson. Sometimes it's from Nick Sirianni. Sometimes an overruling situation. BJ wanted to run a particular play and Sirianni does, and then he takes the blame. Yeah, I think the players know this. Sorry, going to get some of these trolls out of here too. I'm all right with a little bit, but man, we go overboard. Let's move that. Robster, how are you going to get Shane back? LOL. I don't understand people saying that. I mean, we'd love it, but what are we going to offer him? I don't know what it would take to really. He said, "Hey, if you agree to come back, we'll fire Nick Sirianni." You think Lurie would go with that one? I would love that. D Dragon, what's up? Says, what's with the Kenny shade? Do you not like Kenny? No, I do. I don't. I mean, I don't know if I said too much negative about Kenny. I wasn't like all in favor of Kenny, but I think that he has his moments. He's great, like pass blocking. He's the best out of the runners that we have. He's done great on that side. Running wise, early in the season was a little bit irritating. I was like, can we please get DeAndre Swift? Because again, I think it's not as much of a negative in my mind, like towards Kenny, as it is just what does Swift do and what does Swift bring to the offense. It's like, to me, DeAndre Swift is drastically better. Maybe not drastically, but he's better. He's much improved than Kenny Gainwell in the running game. But if you spell with it, then sure. You spell with Kenny Gainwell, that's fine. You have a good option with the two of them. I just don't know that Kenny Gainwell is ever your, like, certainly not a 3-down back, but I don't even know if he's like your lead in that sense. If you could keep Swift for, a relative number there. But appreciate the super chat. I will say I was irritated with Kenny early in the year, like the whole texting at halftime and or DM responding to a fan during halftime and all that. Like, this season didn't feel just weird for a number of reasons. It just all adds up. You have the halftime, DMing and Slay responding to like 49ers messages after one of our losses, and AJ with the emotional outbursts again, like whatever it was. I know the speculation blew it out of proportion, but still, you just had these different sideline spats. You had Dallas Goedert. I get you're going to be frustrated in a playoff game, emotions. Most of us have played sports, I'm sure. So like you get it. And like, I never had cameras on me, so it's a big difference, I'm sure too. Whenever you got cameras and you're like, I'm trying to be emotional and be like all in, but at the same time, in the back of my head, think and remember maybe like, oh, people are watching this. I don't know how that would work. So I probably would probably be terrible, but they're professional athletes. And so yes, they get that extra under a microscope type of scenario from the media, but it just felt strange for a number of reasons throughout the year. Yeah, Rob brings up a good point. Doug was likely staying. Don't forget that. They were planning to keep him prior to the meeting. Yeah, referenced in Doug Peterson before his meeting with Lurie. It did seem like Peterson would stay. They were going to try to change things, but then Doug basically, my understanding, he's kind of made an ultimatum in a sense and saying, like, I'm the head coach. I still need to have decision-making, and wasn't enough, either that or the plan that Doug had, so just moved on with him. But Dankbirds, Nick doesn't call plays. I don't know. He does some. He for sure does some. Maybe not the vast majority, but he inserts himself enough from piece together the different sources and the different stories throughout the year, and also like Brian Johnson's a couple different press conferences not being able to answer why a certain play call was run, and you could just kind of read between the lines and tell. Plus that report again of players not knowing who it's coming from. He calls plays. Maybe not a lot, but he loves the offense. He wants to insert himself. Yeah, I saw Brian Flores. Kieran with if he's available, would love him. Hire as a D coordinator. I'd love it too. I just don't know why he would leave and not really get a promotion if he was available. Oh yeah, see here, I'm reading it now. Sorry, late to get in the comments. But John saying kind of the same thing. Brian Flores not leaving for the same job, maybe for a head coach. I agree. If it's a promotion, he'd do it. Nathan, what's up? Says Gamewell's a great Swiss Army knife, not a premier back, but not bad. Yeah, that's probably about where I'm at. Not that I don't want him. Yeah. LOL, he's not a Quez. Now there's one that definitely not going to. That is, my gosh. So done with Quez. I know there's still a couple of Quez apologists out there, but that is not something that I'm ever going to do, and he needs to be just gone. Niche David had a couple points here. If it's Sirianni's offense, it's Sirianni's offense. If he was going to make changes when it mattered, he would have. Yes. Try to get to the other comment on this one too. And yeah, Sirianni's has loyalty to his staff, not willing to make changes. Didn't seem that way. Yeah, felt like there was some of those, but not. He kept saying it. We just didn't get any changes from that side. So I don't know. I was assuming that we would hear some official word, but again, the only thing that we've gotten so far is just speculation on Sirianni likely staying because a source was telling Outside the Birds that he's likely staying. There's going to be changes on the coaching staff, though, or with the coordinators possibly. So, but the fact that it's taking longer, and Bill Belichick's already had 2 interviews with the Falcons, and we've had other coaches that are having interviews or scheduling interviews, it doesn't feel great that there's a chance if you are in the on the side of Sirianni being able to, be let go, new regime, have somebody else come in. Yeah, David saying any news yet? Meeting over. So far, don't know. I mean, not anything official. There's speculation, brief source, unconfirmed source saying that Sirianni is going to stay. But there's a lot of us, like Track Major Productions, saying Sirianni got to go. So, and then a Mike Tomlin, please. Maybe. I'm trying to just prepare myself for the news that maybe I don't want to hear, but Sirianni going to hang around. Let's see. We'll get to a couple other the comments here, and then also there's some cap potential changes too. So that's another thing to be aware of. But maybe they can turn things around again, assuming depending on who the regime is. Empire Fire says Sirianni. David Ertz. Hey, Josh, I'm really curious what you think about the kid from New Orleans we just signed for our wide receiver 3 spot. Let's see. That is... Which one was that? I'll be honest. I've got the list as far as like the futures contract, so I don't know if that's who you're talking about there, but I haven't dug into a lot of the the futures contract players that we've signed, just to see scheme fit and everything, or what they bring to the table. I'll throw it up here though too, just for people who are curious. We have signed 20 players to futures contracts. So if you haven't been keeping up, there's been a lot of them. Some of them you'll recognize obviously from the practice squad. So you got, multiple names in there. Thomas Booker, the Raven Clark, Mekhi Gardner, Mario Goodrich, Jacob Harris, Teron Jackson, Tristan McCollum, several guys that Brandon Smith, Brett Toth, Lasitas Smith, a lot of guys that were on the practice squad, and then several guys that you're going out and getting to. Noah Ellis, EJ Jenkins, tight end from, I guess, was previously at the Jets. Tijuan Mullen, who bounced back, it felt like 4 different times. On the roster, off the roster. Joseph Ngata, obviously. Some possibility there. But yeah, there's 20 in total for futures contracts. So they'll potential guys that might be able to make a splash in offseason, making a roster spot. But you're technically not a limit as far as guys that you can sign for futures contracts. You just got to be under the roster spot or the roster number of 90. So if people weren't aware of that, I mean, you'd sign them all. And basically the stipulation is anyone who was not on an active roster, you could just go out there and say like, all right, hey, we're gonna sign you to a futures contract, and that essentially kind of dibs the player until you get to the new league year. That way you can focus on like premier free agents and veterans and things like that. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not really sure that we've made any splashes with those. Again, you have a lot of potential in players, sure, and maybe you see something, but yeah, Cool Rain says Austin Watkins from Cleveland. Yeah, could be something. But again, one of the many names here. I think Oz could be if you're looking at some, it just doesn't need to be Quez if we're just talking about like wide receiver 3. It doesn't need to be Quez, that's for sure. I don't know if you bring back Oz. He was okay. They just didn't really use him a whole lot. So I don't know. It feels like you won't pay someone much in that spot anyway, unless you get someone who's coming into a drastic scheme change who's going to use the wide receiver 3. But to me, I'd be like, you got to get Dallas Goedert going more. It felt like it was too much of a force to get DG going. And sure, you go get the ball to AJ quite a bit. Yes, you get the ball to Devontae. But I feel like we could be doing so much better with Dallas Goedert. And it just makes it's way too forced. Yeah, talking about the tight end, though, Michael, surprised Ertz never signed with a team. I am too. I thought that was a for sure. I thought it was a given. Going to play with a playoff contender, seeing that come on and getting nothing. David Moore, Mike V. And I hope we keep DeAndre Swift for real. Yes, I am right there with you. I would love both of those. I would love both of those and being able to make a different impact on those for sure. But yeah, John saying I've been seeing hella rumors. There's a lot of these. This time of year, I guess it makes it fun-ish because there's some drama and there's lots of speculation going on. But yeah, there's lots of rumors and hard to tell exactly where the truth falls sometimes, especially whenever we're looking at, definitely in the big scenario here, talking about like head coach. Are we going to get a head coaching change? Is Sirianni staying? Surely we hear word like, I figured we might get a Friday dump, which is why it's like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's see what's going to go on. But you can't drag this on any further, really, either way. But certainly if you're going to let go of him and try to go after a different head coach, you have to make a decision. So you get to the other super chat here. Anish, appreciate it. $5 super chat says, hypothetical, Seattle benched Woolen during parts of the season. If we were to get rid of Bradbury, would he be worth making a deal with Seattle for? I mean, that's a great hypothetical, but would you think that Seattle would... You think Seattle really wants him at all? I mean, what do we have to pay them to take James Bradberry? I don't think that there's anything we could do really to get a team to take James Bradberry after this season. Like, what are they going to offer you? You know, like a conditional 7th round pick or something. Like, there's just nothing that I see on upside. If I'm a team, I'm looking at the tape, watching James Bradberry, it screams the dude is washed, and I feel for him. It's terrible, confidence shaken. I don't know if it was the holding call in the Super Bowl or if it was just early in the season having some struggles, but the dude was totally different. Or it was Denard Wilson. I know that Denard Wilson makes a big change, and Slay said that he would have been better than Matt Patricia and Sean Desai. So there's a number of things it could have been, but I would love to get something back for him. I'd love to figure out a way to get rid of his contract without having to have all the dead cap and, you know, you're eating all this, or be able to salvage his career if you could resurrect and get him to play at just a semi-pro level. But if I'm a team, again, I don't know that there's any deal that I'm looking at saying, yeah, let's take Bradberry and that 12 from his side, even with Woolen being benched parts of the season. Just doesn't feel like there's any upside. Yeah, Jay says, got to restructure and try to trade Bradberry. I mean, yeah. I would love that. Let's see. Get the other super chat here. Slick, another one, $10. Appreciate that. Says, what about Ken Dorsey? He got fired from the Bills this season, but last year the Bills went 13-3 with I lost that chat. Sorry. With Erhardt Perkins scheme, which I think better suits Jalen Hurts being a run first scheme. Yeah. It's not a bad. It's a good point. 13-3, certainly with the scheme and run first. The question, I don't know if they want to run him anymore. That's the issue too. And I don't know if it's Jalen. Is it Jalen not running as effectively, or is it the coaching staff, or is it a combo of both? Because, like, I went back and watched there's a number of games. You could throw on a lot of different ones from last season, but I went back and watched the game against the Packers, right, where he had the 150 rushing, 150 passing, the touchdowns, like, you know, all over the place. Incredible. He's a different player. He's a different guy. Like, he looks faster, looks quicker, looks, you know, and sure, he got all the money. You got to protect yourself. But a different player and so much more dynamic. Look at the running plays he had last season. Now, he was injured. I get that. He was injured most of the season this year with the knee injury. And, you know, who knows, maybe we'll figure out in the coming weeks that Jalen had a more significant injury than we even thought with the knee or leg injury. But he just doesn't seem the same. And so it's I get, like, longevity of career, keep him upright, you know, don't risk injuries. I'm fine with that. But I'm just curious, like, are they even going to be willing to opening up and saying, like, yeah, let's bring in a scheme that's going to, you know, like, heavily take advantage of Jalen's ability? Because he can still do it whenever he wants to. It can be somewhat effective. But I don't know. Like, he seems to have lost a lot of explosiveness, and then also just not willing to fight for some, like, not like go take a massive shot, but even just kind of like, hey, make one man miss and get an extra, you know, 4 or 5 yards. Instead, it's kind of like, oh, Jalen's going to slide, or oh, Jalen's going to duck out of bounds. Sometimes it makes sense, but sometimes it was really frustrating because I'm like, man, I think about Jalen. Think about 2 seasons ago. Like, Jalen was ridiculous in the open field, and that was what made him so unstoppable. He's still great, but it feels like it's an unusual situation because you're not getting it as often as we saw in the past. And I don't know. I don't know if it's a combo of both. It's funny, I guess, in a maybe not so funny way that whenever Jalen got the contract signed, like, I was saying it, we were probably all saying it, but I was like, okay, well, just wait. He's not going to run as much. You're going to see a difference. And, you know, Sirianni says there's no change. Jalen's the same guy. We're still going to use him the same way. Obviously want him to stay healthy, but, you know, he got paid this basically for a reason because of who he is, what he can do on the field. And sure as the world, we saw a difference. Again, I get that he got injured, but I think that's what you see with a lot of guys from injury history. But I'm not totally opposed to Ken Dorsey. I mean, going back to the comment there, I think it could be a possibility, but I still think it comes back to, Is that something that maybe partially is that something that Sirianni wants to be okay with and running Jalen? But bigger probably question is Lurie okay with that? Did Jeffrey Lurie step in and say, look, hey, I've just paid $255 million for this guy. Like, figure out a way to design an offense where maybe he takes fewer shots. Not saying he can't take a ton of them, but fewer shots. I want to keep the investment, keep him healthy, because you see what the difference is when you have him on the field versus whenever he's not. So, I don't know. It's a good point. It's a possibility there. Bills are better without him since making that move, but it totally matters on scheme and players. So I'm with you on that one. Nick Plays, what's up? Says Jason Kelce said he didn't want to retire in his podcast. Kind of, I think. I don't know that I would say fully didn't want to retire. I think, unless maybe I missed a different point that he said. But yeah, like he not fully agreeing with the, hey, for sure I'm going to retire report from the media, but saying that it wasn't the right time. It was emotional, all that stuff. So I do still feel like body language, everything else will probably, I would love it. It just feels like it's going to be the last season for Kelce. And the fact that it was reported first season in his career where Wednesdays he was still tired, sore, having that fatigue. Although maybe the argument to that is, how many primetime games did we play? How many, Monday night, Sunday night games? Like, that takes a toll on your body. That's later in the day, later in the week even, and then all of a sudden oh my gosh, Wednesday practice, we're playing again. The schedule was not the best. Let's just say that. Not the best for a guy who's a little bit older and already fatigued or prone to recovery. I know that for me, I'm not a professional athlete, but just go and do regular activities. I feel it more now than I did 10 years ago. So I don't know what it's like, but I can only imagine is Jason Kelce's getting beat up on at the bottom of the pile of the tush push, 10 times a game or whatever. And they wake up on Wednesday. They can't feel great. But yeah, I think that's definitely affecting his decision. So we'll see. I hope he stays. Joke sauce. Josh, you think Howie will prioritize the corners or linebackers in the draft? Yeah, I talked about it a little bit ago, or maybe towards the open of the live stream here, but I would love it. Yes, he needs to. The issue is I just don't think that he will. I think linebackers more so, because if you look at the free agency possibilities, right, the guys that maybe we can sign, there's more of options at corner. But linebacker options, to me, going back and seeing this, it's not a super deep, hey, we can get a bunch of different possibilities here for linebacker, and especially knowing how he is and what he doesn't want to pay. So I would love to see him go with linebacker. It frees up the, you're not getting a veteran. You're not having to break the bank in terms of paying. But I think Howie's probably, if I had to guess, I feel like he's still going to be like, nope, you know what? We got Nakobe. We're going to put our faith in Nakobe Dean. And I hope Nakobe turns out. I do. But I feel like he's going to say, there's one. And then maybe, Zach Cunningham was serviceable. He was fine. He wasn't insane, but he was serviceable compared to what we have. So, does he go, well, maybe we re-sign Zach to a 1-year deal. You have Nakobe and Zach Cunningham, and then try to figure something out in like late stages of free agency, or get a UDFA, or Ben Van Sumeren. He was, he was okay. He was pretty good in some limited action. So maybe that's an option you throw out there. But I don't know. That's one of those that, as much as I would love to see him prioritize a couple of those positions, you still do have needs at other roles that Howie's famous for going after. You're going to need a defensive lineman. You're going to need that for depth. You're going to need offensive line. You're going to need that for depth. It's not as much of a, hey, if you get someone, you could have him play from day one, but still, I think that you're going to need that. Yeah, Scott saying, if they haven't made a decision about Sirianni by now, I would think they will wait until tomorrow late morning to make an official statement. Possibly so. Yeah, that's where I'm saying. Surely you don't 7:30 on a Friday night, you'd media dump and say, hey, we're keeping him, or hey, he's gone. Like that, I wouldn't think so. Although with it being the weekend too, I don't know. Do they just wait until Monday? That would be crazy. The only way they do that too is, again, this is where I go back to, like, the longer this takes, the more likely that Sirianni's sticking around. Yeah, Shaq Diesel. We missed out on D'Amico Ryans as head coach. Yeah, well, I mean, that wasn't going to happen last season, coming off of a Super Bowl appearance, but he's done well. He has done well. But never in play, for sure. Maxwell, what's up? Appreciate the super chat. What is a trade you'd like to see for the Birds? It's a good question. I'm trying to think of like a realistic trade because I could name, just a outlandish trade that's like a forced trade on Madden or whatever. But like if we're doing realistic wise, man, I don't know. You need a couple different positions. I feel like, and I said this before, I feel like the offense is not really in a place where you look at personnel and say we need a lot. You could shore up a couple positions, you could shore up a couple roles, but really it's defensively, and it's linebacker, it's corner, and then you look at like salary cap wise. I don't know. This one's not even possible, but I'm still just I feel like I'm burned by the whole TJ Edwards thing. So if you figured out a way to get him back for not a whole lot, but I know that's not happening and it's impossible. But you need a linebacker. Like you need to do something there, and it makes a difference. I'm for a while I was behind Howie Roseman's theology, I guess, of like, hey, linebacker doesn't make a huge difference. But the more that we get into this and the longer that I've seen it, I think I'm going back on it. I'm like, no, you know what? You need a linebacker to a certain extent, unless you have just a ridiculous defensive line who can dominate like crazy. But even then, I think it's a different argument because TJ Edwards is good. He's a good linebacker. And sure, maybe he wasn't before. He was kind of an unproven, undrafted free agent that you didn't know what you had. But like, he turned out to be good. Therefore, he was good, and we saw differences. I know he made mistakes. I know the Super Bowl was not the best game for him, obviously. But like, still, overall, holistically, he's a good linebacker. And there's a reason that he went to Chicago, and then he was 7th in the NFL in tackles and 155 in total, 2.5 sacks, 3 interceptions. Like, the dude can play. And it makes a difference on a team whenever you have a linebacker who can cover in today's NFL. And I almost wonder if that's, just the NFL being a copycat league, right? And you like adjust things around and you figure out like, oh, hey, maybe teams are not valuing the linebacker position as much. So we take advantage of that, and sure, the schemes and the motion and everything's going all over the place. So you take advantage of moving tight ends around, moving guys in the slot, all this other stuff. But when you have a linebacker who can be versatile and can recognize plays and shut down the run while also being a force at times in the pass rush and being able to be the signal caller out there, I think that's a huge difference. And I think that Reed Blankenship's going to be okay. And this is maybe going off on a tangent here, but having a different green dot wear is a much bigger deal. Like, Reed Blankenship may have been okay, but I'm just telling you, if you have a Fred Warner or if you have a Roquan Smith out there, like, sorry, regardless of like talent level, just a leader on the field, a field general on the defensive side of the ball, barking out orders, telling guys where to be, being that enforcer, getting guys hyped up in between plays, helping everyone with their different checks, alignments, where they're supposed to be, and all this other stuff. It's as much, I mean, maybe not as much, but it's close to a quarterback. It's not the exact same amount of alignment, but I'm just saying there's a difference. The guys who are the guys out there, not just the ones, like, yeah, they're serviceable. There's a difference for the linebacker spot. And sadly, we don't have those. And you're seeing that there's a price to be paid. So, it was early on to Kobe Dean. He gets injured. You have, Christian Ellis for kind of a little bit, but Reed Blankenship some, and then he's injured. And then it's Nicholas Morrow with the green dot. So there's all sorts of issues all over the place. And coaching was bad, and that's probably the first issue. But different green dot wearers and someone who's not that leader or not comfortable being in that role, it plays a huge difference. And I think that you see it in all three levels, not just in the linebacker core, but the D-line. They're getting their orders from linebacker core and the secondary. It just plays a huge part. So I don't know. A realistic trade, I don't know what one's realistic out there, but I would say some sort of linebacker, and just with his familiarity with Philly and the report that Howie didn't even offer TJ Edwards, I would love to have TJ back. I hated to see him go. I said whenever we first got that was probably the worst decision. Maybe James Bradbury re-signing was the worst ultimately, but yeah, Cool Rains says you'd have to give up Bradbury and probably a 4th-round pick. I think that's maybe going back to the... Yeah, what are we going to do to trade Bradbury? The Crypto Queen, I don't think he ever fully got past that knee. That's possibility. Yeah, Jalen injury like we were mentioning. Yeah, Jay, please tell me Watkins is a free agent. Yeah, that's the beauty. We're not bringing back Quez. This was Quez's prove it year, and even though he said that he will pick up the phone and he'll answer, we all knew he will not pick up the phone. He'll let it go to voicemail and then still not check the message. So yeah, Quez is there's no way we re-sign him. I would be incredibly mad, but I would also be incredibly shocked if we do that. Noah, what's up? Good on you, and stick with the wired headphones. I appreciate that. Yeah, I will. I don't need them today, obviously, but I will stick with the wired headphones because the charging is every single time that I use the earbuds, it never works. Always dies. David Moore, I agree. It is if we keep AJ and DeAndre Swift, then yes, go heavy on defense in the draft. I think you have to. That's the area personnel-wise. You got to sure up quite a bit. Nathan Hoffman, WIP, had a segment about trusting Lurie. It made me feel a little bit better. I'm going to have to listen to that. I don't think I heard that one. But I will go back and give it a listen. Seeing stuff about Nolan. Philly 416, any word on Sirianni? Still nothing yet. I've been refreshing here and seeing if we're going to get any official update other than the speculation and the thought that it's looking likely that he's going to return. But again, it's just a question because Albert Breer just tweeted, said, with the Texans playing tomorrow, offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick is done interviewing for the week. He's met with the Panthers, Titans, and then 3 other requests with the Falcons, Commanders, and Seahawks when the rules allow. So I think just going back to the whole point of the longer you take, the more they're possibly going to miss out on good candidates. That's where I'm thinking they're probably going to keep him. I'm preparing myself for that.
The end of that game, I think everybody kind of felt for him, knowing that he has been thinking about it a lot over the past couple of years. The documentary shows that you don't need to go around and ask anybody. So it's I don't know. It's just it's been cool to see everybody appreciate.
Did you guys see this? I don't know if you can hear this on this. I'm gonna try and play this through. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear this, but
He didn't really say any of that, so it's just
Travis Kelce on Jason Kelce retiring.
for him, knowing that he has been thinking about it a lot over the past couple of years. The documentary shows that you don't need to go around and ask anybody. So it's I don't know. It's just it's been cool to see everybody appreciate who he's been over the years this past week. But I think the big guy still got some football left if he wants it.
Whoa! All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Did you guys hear that? I'm checking the. I tried to play the interview with Travis right there. I don't know if that actually came through. I'm figuring out this whole live stream, so you may not have heard Travis Kelce and it was just quiet. But according to Travis, maybe Jason Kelce possibly coming back. I don't know. I mean, he said he's got some more football in him, so I would love that. That'd be great. But yeah, back to the whole Sirianni speculation. Feels like he's going to be Feels like he's going to be gone. Or, I'm sorry, going to be staying. Because if he was going to be gone, then you'd have already done it. Okay. Lambaroo said I couldn't hear it. All right. I appreciate it. Nathan says, I think the big guy still, yeah, that's what he said. I think still, the big guy still got some football left if he wants it. I'll figure out how to stream that or play it through. I'm figuring out the audio on that. But that's what Travis said. Okay, yeah. It came through the laptop, but I was trying to play it through the stream. But some of y'all heard it, some of you didn't, but appreciate Nathan here with the transcript of what Travis was saying. But I think the big guy still got football left if he wants it. So there's a chance, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm with John here. He says, I think he's gone. That is where it feels like. As sad as that would be. But there's hope. There is a little bit of hope. Yeah, I mean, I guess the benefit too, we're talking about, off-season acquisitions too, is we're still not getting any updates on Sirianni and whether it's official if he's going to be there. But the one positive is, we're going to try to look at the salary cap too. Here we go. We'll throw this one up here. As I'm getting a question from Bum Parks, did they have the meeting yet? No, yes. Apparently, they said they were meeting today. I think it was a couple hours, is from what I saw a tweet. But we've got no word, literally no word of whether, no official word, I should say. We got rumor that Sirianni's staying. A source said that it sounds like he's gone and or that he's staying, but that the coordinators will be gone, and so. There'll definitely be some changes, but it feels like he's going to be around. But again, we'll have to see how that plays out. Let's see. But this is what I was going to throw up here too, just salary cap wise. So currently $28 million in salary cap for 2024. If they move on from Kevin Byard or redo his deal, that number goes up to $41 million. So wouldn't be the worst thing. You got some things you could do, obviously, with a $41 million in space. Change some things up. Also, the question too is, do you keep Kevin Byard or do you redo his deal and free up some space? I say there's no way. There's no way that you keep Kevin Byard. I feel. I mean, that was one of those. I thought it was going to be great. You guys know, if you go back and look at any of the lives that we had, like as soon as the news broke or the shows talking about Kevin Byard, I was all for it. I was awesome. I thought it was going to be great. You're going to change some stuff, as a lot of things that we, said were going to happen. But I don't know. I think that at this point, he's probably not coming back. But it also would be so like other situations and instances where if he doesn't come back, then all of a sudden, do we regret it? Does he start playing well again? Because he did have to learn, depending on where you fall and what you believe, but he did have to learn like 3-ish schemes in a way. He's got the one when he comes in, he's got Desai, and then he's got another semi one whenever Patricia. He was still calling Desai's plays, but I think you could see there was a difference whenever he came in on that side. So I would love for him to do good, but I feel like I'm probably more on the line of thinking that Byard's not going to be able to find that spark, and as much as we would love to see it, you got to move on. So I don't know. Either way, as Power Talk says, let KB go. John, me too, man. I was all for it. Ken Lewis, cut Byard, he's washed. Yeah, that's about there. 31 next year. It's sad, really, because that's how old I am. But It's old for NFL years. I'd like to think that it's kind of young, just normal years, but 31. JM says, I think he will regress heavily these next years. Yeah, well, if he's going to regress even more, then he's definitely done. Captain Crunch, I agree. He's washed. Yeah, so let's say you do get rid of him. Again, I threw up the graphic, but you have 41 million. 41 million in space, then you got to get some things done. Got to get some things done by re-signing, restructuring some deals, bringing guys back. And what do we expect to see? But because if that's the thing too, is if Kelce even does come back, he's gonna have to. He'd take a decent amount of money because he's still good. He's still going to play. I would want him back, even if it does take a lot of money. But you say you have Jason Kelce. Fletch feels like he's not going to come back, which is a little surprising because I would have assumed that he would. I should say this. Maybe not necessarily come back with Philly, but like playing another year. But it almost sounded like from what Jordan Davis was saying that he's done altogether, that he's retiring. So, but if you look at let's see, I'll throw this one up here too. If you look at the free agency tracker, you got to get some deals done. You got to restructure some money there. Obviously, we're not going to do anything with Quez. We don't want to do that, but I think you got to get some long-term deals. You might be able to backload some stuff too and figure things out that way. I think I saw a comment earlier, give all the money to Smitty. Where was that one? Alvin. He deserves money for sure. Let's not give him all the money. We need that for the defense. We got to find some guys that are going to be able to play, show up. But yeah, we're going to have to get several. Yeah, I'm with Jay. I don't feel like Fletch worth $10 million though. No question. There's no chance. Family YouTube, what's up? Let's bring back Brian Dawkins. I'm sure he can play better than Bradbury. There's a lot of people I think could play better than Bradbury, which is sad, but Ken Lewis, Jeremy Chin, probably $6 million a year. That's a guy that I was hoping for. I was really pushing. Everybody who watched knows I was pushing Jeremy Chin quite a bit whenever we were going through. But again, I was like, all right, hey, you got Kevin Byard 1 year. Let's make it happen. There is money, yes. It's Mijos 28. What's up? Says sign Swift and Devontae. I'm all for that. Yes. Slick says sign DeAndre Swift. Yep. Austin, without question. Yep. Alberto, big dud. I was, again, how he makes a trade, you figure you might be able to get something happen. But Alberto is a freak athlete with a lot of potential, and we didn't see much come from it or much fruition there, sadly. So, Dev, hope we draft a running back with one of our second-round picks. Yeah, I mean, I guess if DeAndre Swift leaves, then it would be cool. It'd be fun. Does Howie Roseman do that? Probably not. But it's fun to get one of those playmakers. I don't know that we're going to go with that for running back. But I will say, hey, we're going to have tons of draft coverage. So again, I've said this a couple times, but for someone that's new, hasn't heard it yet, tons of draft coverage. Myself and Thomas Mott, we're going to be covering the draft, or during the draft, have the live stream, have a great time, probably give away a lot of stuff too. But also throughout the entire offseason leading up to it. We're going to have lots of content, mock drafts, various interviews, who the Eagles are meeting with, because, again, that's obviously one of the biggest tells of who the Eagles are going to draft. They usually select someone that comes in for the private workout and the visit. And also Anthony DeBona of Outside the Birds. He's going to have quite a bit of content, probably even Joe Castro, too. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, and the draft. So we're going to have a ton, and we will keep track of all of that. But yeah, as much as I might like to have a running back with one of our second round picks, I don't know. If I had to bet right now, I'd say it's going to be kind of the same old, which may be boring, but it's going to be trenches for probably for the first 2 picks at least. But I would say you're going to get like a defensive lineman, offensive lineman, and, maybe you get some. I would love a linebacker at that point, but I can't imagine running back as much as we would love it. Philly 416 though says, I get Byard look bad this year. Honestly, who on D looked good other than Cox and Carter? That's a good question. Who looked good other than those two? Who would y'all say? Who would y'all say looked good? Slay was okay. He wasn't at the level of like a Bradbury, but that was just abysmal. But in terms of looking good and playing good, I think you could say Hassan Reddick. I think that's a name you could throw out there. Because the sad part is, like, I know that towards the tail end of the season, you could say it. You definitely have a point as far as stats and just production and everything else. But, Haas looked like he was trying whenever he was put in spots. It was just like he had confidence, and then Patricia comes in, and he starts playing him in coverage situations, and I kind of think it threw him off like a lot of other guys. You put him in different spots. It's like Haas had 10-plus sacks. He got to the double digits, but then you start asking him to cover in the passing game, and that, it would throw me off too. It'd be like, hey, my main focus before this was just rush the passer. Like, I'm going to dominate every single rep. I'm rushing the passer, going to stop the run. He still made some really good plays, even though he didn't do, sack totals kind of went down towards the very end. I'd say you could throw Haas in that situation there too. I can appreciate that. Hey Jay, I appreciate that. Says got a new sub. Great content, man. Awesome. Definitely appreciate the support. You guys are the best. Seriously, almost at 42,000 subs in 11 months. I think 11 months will be like 3 days from now, something like that. But yeah, really appreciate the support. I'm going to have tons of shows, as much as we can anyway, dealing with baby number 2 that came on Tuesday. So figuring out that life, but very, very blessed. So appreciate that. Mark says, any good safeties or corners on the free agent market this offseason? A few. I haven't done a deep dive. We were talking about this a second ago, but I think Jalen Johnson, that would be probably the one towards the very top of my list if we're talking about, potentials to sign and bring in for the offense. I think you got to make a play there. Who was the other one? We had another one that got thrown out there, and I'm forgetting it now. Who did we talk about? Oh yeah, L'Jarius Sneed. He's gonna get a payday though. He's gonna make a lot. That dude's been balling. Shutting out, just dominated Tyreek Hill. So I don't know. That again, it kind of comes down to like how much can you pay, and are you able to get Bradbury off your books, and you got Slay. You still want to get your rookies, who obviously not rookies anymore, I guess. But Keith Ringo, Eli Ricks, there's some potential there. So you still want to get them playing time. That feels like the dilemma that you're in, because you've got this contract that no one wants with Bradbury, but we don't want him. We need space. But if you keep him around, I guess you just, you cut him. Maybe you just take the $12 million hit, or you keep him for that cost, but then it's just a roster spot. I don't know. That's a tough situation there. But I'd say Jalen Johnson or L'Jarius Sneed, if you were able to take your pick. The price though might get pretty costly for those. Yeah, as Philly 416 you pointed out, yeah. Free agent corners and safeties cost big bucks, and that's the sad part. Yeah, Jay saying time to start doing mock drafts. That is sadly. I was hoping we would do a lot of other stuff, and we're off season getting here a little bit early. So we will be doing mock drafts for sure. Do several of those as we're leading up to the draft, and hopefully we can right this ship. Curious who that will be. Still don't know if it's Sirianni yet or not. It's looking likely, but based on reports, we don't have the official word. Mason H, though, appreciate that. Hey, brother, love your content. Heck yeah. It's been a blast. Like I said, it's been a blast doing it for almost 11 months now. Learned a ton. Gotten better. I'm embarrassed whenever I go back and look at some of the first videos, but hey, it's what keeps you doing it. You learn a little, you keep going and get a little bit better, but I appreciate all the support and still trying. I got lots of things in my head that I'm hoping to be able to do. So like cool, innovative stuff for the channel, maybe some, possibly some shirts or hats, maybe we can get going. But a lot of cool stuff too for like live streams coming up and everything else. So we'll see. Stay tuned, but can't confirm officially based on schedule, but we're trying to get this thing humming. Mason, though, Sid Brown, yep, for potential, who played well. Maxwell said Sidney Brown looked nice, lots of potential. That's true. He was all right. There were some times, because I love Sidney Brown. Again, you guys know, rookie wise, Jalen Carter was kind of a given. Nolan Smith was, hyping him quite a bit. I think that there's still a lot of potential, so I'm not giving up on Nolan. But next season will be the kind of the show it to me or prove it season. But Sidney Brown, definitely a lot of hype there. There were moments where it's like, man, this dude, like, obviously flying around the field. But you see plays that he made, and it's like, yes, he could do this, but maybe a little bit of a slowdown than he needs to. And then the fact that he just tore his ACL, I feel terrible for the dude. Like, man, I hope he can come back. I know he said he's attacking his rehab, and I don't doubt it because that dude, it feels like he attacks everything in his life, especially as his life story and the history that he's had. So I love that tenacity. But for a rookie, the way that his season ended, I just hope it doesn't like detriment, kind of like slow his growth into his second season. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. He can be hitting the ground running, hopefully back close to the start of the season. He thinks he'll be back before, which would be great, but ACL injury could be serious, especially the way he plays. So we'll see. Love Sidney Brown, though, too. He's a twin. I'm a twin. So for people that didn't know that, I always have the extra, support that way because I think it's cool being a twin. But, yeah, he was pretty good. John says JD needs to take the next step. Don't disagree with you there. I thought he was early in the season. And then we did not see much, but we didn't see much from a lot of the guys, truth be told, on the D-line. Like Mark said here again, Sweat was better in the first half of the season. Yeah, he looked great in the first half, and then he just dropped off significantly. Nathaniel, what's up? Didn't recognize the pick changed. I like it, though. But Ringo had moments. Yes, he did. He had some moments. I think there's a lot of potential there, but is he starter ready? Like he got some opportunities. Feels like if you get somebody else, you might be able to shore that up and then have him play in spots. Or do they try him on safety? We heard reports of that, right? Like whenever Keely Ringo got drafted, hey, the hip mobility issue, maybe he's not a great corner NFL-wise. You might move him to safety. With Sidney Brown being injured, does Howie say, like, Reed's going to be our guy, Reed Blankenship, and then move Keely Ringo to safety, try to do that? That seems a bit aggressive to say that's going to be your option, but maybe Ringo stays. I think he did well enough as a corner. I think he proved that he can play in that outside corner spot, so he's physical, he's big, he's not afraid to tackle. He did have some terrible attempts at tackling, I know, but that was just about everybody on the defense. So maybe we get him there. I'm just not sure. If you had an option, if there was the ability to get a guy like a Jalen Johnson or L'Jarius Sneed, I would take those over. But there is potential. It's a good question, though, for what Dylan's saying here. Josh, what do you think we need to do about the secondary in the offseason? We need to blow it up. We need to just start over. No, really, though. I mean, it's there's so many concerns and issues, and I think it points to not only some of the personnel, but I think it also points to the coaching. And so, like we were talking about before, it's like Denard Wilson is who the guys wanted. Like, they spoke up for him when the DC opening was there. Slay was certainly voicing for Denard Wilson. James Bradbury, not as committal, but he was still kind of like, that's our guy. Like, it'd be good. Like that's a potential on that side. You see how great it would have been, and the wrong decision that Sirianni went with. But yeah, I think Denard Wilson would have worked wonders for this squad, certainly from the secondary. So I think you got to get a new, I don't know, whether it's Denard Wilson coming back, which I don't think happens, especially if Sirianni stays, but a new name, someone who the players can get some buy-in on. And then also you got to get, it's weird because we're in a tough spot. It's like I say, you got to get younger, but in a sense, the secondary is young because you've got Reed Blankenship and Kevin Byard's probably gone. You have Slay and Bradbury, but in the sense of like who are the backups, so the other potentials there, like we're talking about, you have Keely Ringo, you have Eli Ricks. Mekhi Garner was more of a safety role, but he's still going to be on the practice squad. Does he make a jump? Does he start playing a little bit? Maybe. But it also doesn't feel like those are the answers to the secondary. So we're in such a tough spot, and we're hamstrung by the contract situation too. Like the Slay's ones, it's not awful because he wasn't the worst, but there was a slight regression for sure. There was a slight regression from the previous year, and I think we all realized that was probably going to happen when you signed the contract. But Bradbury's was fall off a cliff. That wasn't a regression. That was hey, I forgot how to play football on the outside. I mean, I'm sorry. That's maybe too harsh for the dude, but like, I don't know that I've ever seen a guy get so many nicknames in one like stretch of games. Like from what was it? Like week 6 or 7, it was James Bradbury to then he's got 6 or 7 different nicknames, and they're obviously all, Burntberry, Badberry, Trashberry. What are a couple others? And there's like 2 or 3 others that I'm missing, but it tells you all you need to know about a dude who just, like I say, completely fell off the cliff. JM, appreciate that. Great stream. Good takes. Hitting that subscribe as well. Awesome. Very much appreciated. We're going to have quite a bit of these. I'm trying to do more lives too, because it's just the back and forth interaction and everything. But we'll certainly do that. Maybe do some like mock drafts and interaction that way. But yes, all throughout the offseason, free agency, draft, everything there. As Johnny Nelson here says, no one wants Burntberry. Yes, I know. That is without question. T1K, Bradbury wouldn't be worth a lot in a trade. Yeah, no way. Not worth much. The Crypto Queen. Wow, you seem like you've been doing this way longer than 11 months. Your page is so well done. Thank you. I'm fake it till you make it, I guess. It's I've surprising some people. I appreciate it. Learning like crazy. To me, maybe I'm just being like self-critical, but I there's so many things I see that I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do better here. I got to change this or do that. So, but I appreciate it. Team Birds, what's up? Appreciate it. The first thing I want to say is congrats on your baby. Thank you. Second, if the baby came on Monday, you could have avoided that terror attack at Tampa. Yeah, that would have been kind of nice, actually. For a second, I was like, oh, I'm going to miss the playoff game, or I might be interrupted there, which it'd be fine, right? They did a lot more important things than a game, even a playoff game. But yeah, I was thinking that would be a negative thing, and then it probably would have been good because it would have saved me a lot of just frustration and anger and disappointment and everything else that you can imagine. So instead, it was just very, very late that night. It was 3 a.m. JM said, I think Jordan Davis' regression is due to the soft practices that we have. Yeah, that's another point, too. Like, if Sirianni stays, he's in charge of the practices. So regardless of if the scheme changes, practices are not as intense, according to, several different reports. But Javon Hargrave saying that the Niners actually work in their practices, where the Eagles is kind of, softer, not as much. It'll definitely change that way. You have Yeah, seeing several comments, need padded practices, more intense practices, full contact. Yeah. Maybe you would see a difference. That would be the hope. All right, I'm refreshing to check real quick here. On Sirianni, you got a comment of saying, let's see, from Duck. Any updates on Sirianni? Still nothing. Only the speculation, and there was a one rumor of Sirianni likely staying, but the coordinator's being let go. So that is the only rumor, but no official confirmation on how that one went. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I completely spaced on that. But Frankie Ray, shout out to you. Great point to bring up. Don't forget the guy Rodgers that we traded for from the Colts that was suspended for the year. Yeah, Isaiah Rodgers. That's a really, really good point. Yeah, he should be. I mean, he's been suspended for a year, so that's a little bit. Dingleberry, as Maxwell says, is the other name. That's one of them that I forgot for James Bradbury. But yeah, Rodgers should be good, assuming, like rust of not playing for a year. But that'd be the hope is, yeah, he can come in here, be a potential option. Kind of help solidify that. So that's true. Maybe sure it up a little bit more. You don't know what you have 100%, but he could be good. Appreciate the keeping us honest, too. Nathan Baldberry, which was the next. There's one of them, yep. Canucks Braves, they called him Punkberry. I don't know that I ever heard that one, but yeah. Nathan McCringleberry. Austin, they say Bradbury's still falling as we speak. My gosh. It's really like it's really sad, but also kind of humorous, I guess, at this point, because you have to laugh at it. It's season's over. We saw how terrible it was. Oh my gosh. John, hey, we need to draft Kool-Aid. Yeah. Don't know that we will. I would like that, but question is, would they do it? Or like, let's see, going back to the Bradbury conversation, can't we replace Bradbury with Ringo? Hopefully. I think he's right there. He's like on the cusp, because I think that Ringo, he showed he has potential, and if he has the right coaching, right proper techniques, and we get some help from a little more D-line pressure, the linebackers can help shore up the middle, he might be the solution. I don't know. Be curious to see. Nathan says if Sirianni stays, he's going to mean mug the camera and yell no change. If he does that, then Lurie's literally coming back down and be like, hey, actually, on second thought, you're gone. We're done. Paco Loco Bumberry. There you go. All right, we'll go a couple more, and then I probably need to get off and help the wife, because we've been doing this for a while on the stream. But enjoy getting back on and interacting here too. Let's see. There's a comment here I wanted to throw up as well. We talked about it a little bit, but naughty or nice. Let's see. Any opinion on new Cleveland wide receiver Philly just signed? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Austin Watkins is the one. So anybody who hasn't seen it yet, signed to the futures contract. I think that he's going to be. He could be a possibility. He's going to be one that, you know, it still always is going to be offense run through A.J. Brown, through Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert needs some targets. And so we found that, there's concerns there of how can you get them the ball, but he can't be worse than Quez. Although it's funny that his last name is Watkins, so you just replace him with maybe a better Watkins. I was trying to look up, didn't Watkins, because didn't he torch us in the preseason? I'm pretty sure that was the one that he had a really good game against us. But they may not show that here. Or am I thinking of somebody else? Am I making that up? I could be. I thought he had a really good game. Yeah, there we go. I was going to say, I felt like he did. I just couldn't find the stats there. Yeah, so 139 yards and a touchdown against the Eagles. So again, there's potential, but obviously the fact that he was on the practice squad, didn't make the active roster for Cleveland, I don't know that he's one that's going to move the needle a ton, but like I say, he's going to be a better option than Quez Watkins. You get a little bit more juice to the offense, and hopefully whoever you bring in as an offensive coordinator will utilize him correctly, but I think that's really what it comes down to. Christine says, I think they learned a lesson about keeping analytics to a minimum and getting hard coaches. I hope so, but I'm not sure. Because as much as Lurie and the whole staff there and Howie invest in the analytics department and they love using it, I'm skeptical. I'm kind of concerned that they might just stick with that. Prim T, just joining in here. What's the latest news? Go Birds. Appreciate that. Go Birds. Latest news is basically Sirianni, it's feeling like is likely to stay. We don't have an official, but there was one report from outside the Birds, Anthony DeBona, who said that he has a source who texted him and said Sirianni is likely staying, but meaning that there will be changes to the coaching staff. So coordinators that might get let go. But we will see. Brandon Wright, we have 1 first rounder and 2 seconds. They should all be used on defense. I would not disagree with you on that. Yes, they could certainly be used on the defense. That is one of those that I think everyone watching and knowing the personnel, you could certainly do that, and you're not going to have any qualms with that. Alvin, appreciate that. Yes, you do have great content. I'm subscribed to both you and Thomas. Awesome. We definitely appreciate that. Again, we will have continued content all throughout the offseason. Even though the season ends for the Birds, it doesn't for us. So, we'll have all the stories, breakdowns, what's going on, everything else. So, and leading up to the draft, which we're going to have a blast, the draft party, always fun. Certainly the first round, but we'll have the first couple days for sure, and pretty cool stuff planned for it, but stay tuned for that. Super chat here. Oh, appreciate that, man. Alvin again, $20. Dude, seriously. A little something for the baby girl. Congrats, bro. She's beautiful. I appreciate that. That is, she is such a blessing. Charlotte June said it on the video, obviously, but 8 pounds exactly, 20 inches of Fly Eagles Fly, even though her mother is a cheesehead. It's all Go Birds. We can we'll support the Packers at times, certainly whenever they play Dallas, and we'll cheer for them this weekend, just as long as they're not playing the Birds. But it's Eagles first. But no, I appreciate that. Primetime Poker, what's up? Appreciate the $5 super chat. I don't see a comment here, but if you have something, drop a comment and I'll put it up here real quick. Philly 416 can't win more than 7 games next season with Nick. That's the sad part that I probably agree. Not going to win very many. Unless he totally backs off, like we were talking about. Totally backs off, lets offensive coordinator go. Calling plays. Devontae, how you enjoying fatherhood, bro? Appreciate that. It's great. Again, this second daughter, so 2 girls now, girl dad times 2. Adjusting for sure. It's going to be an adjustment. So, but I am enjoying it like crazy. I was excited for it, but the fact that, a girl, I guess, like I've got 3 brothers and then a youngest sister. So I a lot more familiar and, like knowing like, okay, hey, I guess boys and how that's going to be, but it's been a blast. Such a blessing. You got to convert her. It's the only way. My wife, will cheer for the Eagles. She's just born in Wisconsin. So, there's the cheesehead part. And so they're still in the playoffs and we're not either. So it's not like I can even say anything to her. It's like, well, hey, the team didn't go as far, but Nathan, that's okay. My brother's a cheesehead. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. I might have to apologize for that once I go back out there, but Christine, the lone man in the den of girls. Good luck. Yeah, that is me, but it is fun. I enjoy it. We are having a blast. Okay, I missed the super chat, but here it is. Primetime Poker, whatever happened to Zach Ertz? Yeah, I don't know. We were talking about this a second ago, but I have no clue. The speculation or the thought was like Ertz is going to sign with a playoff contender. The Cardinals let him go to do that, to pursue. You would have thought someone would have signed him, even if it's just like as a backup that reserve plays only if there's an injury or something, or even Philly. But maybe he didn't get the contract he was wanting for. I don't know. Still nothing, though. I haven't heard an update. I don't know if he's going to come back next season or if he's just like, hey, retire. And in that case, does he sign with Philly real quick and then retire? I don't know. But that was one of the more surprising ones for sure. I thought that was a given he was coming back. All right, I'll do a couple more questions, and then I'm going to have to jump because I got to go help the wife here. But Alex, what is your opinion on the defensive line regression as a whole? Do you think it's more coaching because of scheme or because we really got that bad at rushing the passer? I think it's scheme mostly. There's probably some regression, but I think it's scheme and coaching. I think the players at times were so, I don't know, maybe like a little bit too harsh, but like selfish maybe is the right word. Or, they talked about like Desai even allowing the players to kind of, here's the structure of the defense, but at times you can freelance or you can kind of do your own thing. Feel like that hurt everyone in general because sometimes you get a pressure from one side, but because you're not keeping contained on the other, or you're not in your right gap, you're not kind of keeping gap contained, then it comes back to bite you. So I think that's part of it. And then scheme in general. I think that every single team, even before San Francisco a little bit, but San Francisco was kind of the blueprint. Like once they destroyed us, I think every team looked at it and said, hey, we don't have to take deep drops. Like we don't have to take time in the pocket. You can literally take a snap, quick drop, get out the ball because we know exactly where we can go to attack this defense. And I think that's what we saw. There's a reason why we couldn't get a sack hardly at all in the remaining games this season. So I'm not too concerned. I think that there's some shoring up you're going to have to do. You definitely want to draft a defensive lineman, I would think, in the first 2 rounds. But, and maybe even, hey, get someone from free agency, bring him in, keep that rotational pass rush. But I don't think it's as glaring as just saying like, oh my gosh, we've got an entire defensive line that's all washed and can't get a single pressure. Like, it's not to that extent, but I also won't say, oh, we've got the most dominant D line ever. Like, we're probably, maybe an above average D line. But I think that you need to shore up a ton of the coaching and scheming, because when the opposing offense doesn't just know for sure, like, oh, hey, there's Nicholas Morrow, we can get an open target within 2 seconds, or hey, there's James Bradbury, we can get an open target within 2 seconds. It makes the quarterback second guess, and then that's where you can start getting some of those sacks. So I think they'll come back. I think Milton Williams could be due for more playing time and possibly a breakout. I thought this the past season, and then as good as Jalen Carter was, he kind of just took a back seat. But I think there's still a possibility. I know we've been saying it for kind of a number of years, like, oh, maybe Milton Williams, maybe Milton Williams. But I still think that there's potential there. So maybe you see him take on a bigger, more prominent role, and certainly help with a pass rush. But it's not really as much of a sound alarms, like I say, until you go to the difference of getting whoever your DC is going to be and shore up those holes all over the place. Nathan said, at least you didn't have to grow up with her during the Favre and Rodgers eras between that and the early 90s Cowboys. Yeah. Is it Mika or Micah? You said, please shout me out. So what's up? How's it going? I may not have said the name correctly, so apologies on that. But what are your thoughts on CJ Stroud? I think, he's been great, obviously. I think he's been fantastic. I said before, this is maybe a toot my own horn type of deal, but whenever we were talking about like quarterback candidates and draft coverage and leading up to the draft and everything else, I said out of the quarterback potentials that you could get this season, I was like, I feel like CJ Stroud's going to be the best out there, out of the Bryce Young, out of Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. I said CJ Stroud. Like, if I was picking number one, I would have taken. Now, granted, he's in a better position just from the get-go at the Texans than Carolina. So Bryce Young could figure things out. They could get better personality. It could be okay. But early returns, I don't mind saying that. So we'll see. But yes, from the way that he's played, he's been nothing like a rookie. Just ridiculous. You obviously see it in the playoff game, and congrats to them, I guess, for getting the win. But we'll see if they can keep that up against the Ravens. Really good test. Browns had a great defense too, though, and they were able to shred them there. A little bit different, though. Whenever the Browns aren't as good offensively, so there might be a little bit more pressure to keep up and help your defense out. But Texans are no joke, and neither is Stroud. I think, again, that's why, sadly for Stroud, he's probably going to lose Slowick, his offensive coordinator. He may even lose his quarterbacks coach. And either is it Jared or Gerard Johnson? I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but then you kind of have a similar-ish question or concern of kind of like Hurts, but is he going to be able to keep up his level of play and progression? Because as great as he's been, you're going to lose guys to head coaching jobs probably. I would highly doubt those guys stick around. And does that kind of stall CJ's ability to improve and continue to grow in this league, or is he able to get it done with somebody else, whoever they bring in or whoever's the next man up? It's kind of always the, issue or concern whenever you're hiring somebody, because I think it's a difference if you have the head coach, versus a coordinator like we've been talking about. Because DeMeco Ryans is a defensive mind. Like, he can help CJ probably a little bit, but he's not the main groomer in terms of how CJ is going to perform. And if you have an offensive-minded head coach, that would be the idea and the hope is, hey, even though we lose a coordinator, we're not losing the mastermind. We're not losing the groomer to be able to get this quarterback to play at his best. And sadly, that's not Sirianni for us, even though he's supposedly an offensive mind. But we'll see. CJ's been pretty good. Who you got, Bills or Chiefs? I'm going to say Bills. I almost said Chiefs, but I'm going to say Bills. I think they do it. They've been playing really good ever since losing to us. Right? Ever since losing to us, they haven't lost. What is it now? 6 wins in a row? 7? Something like that. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. I gotta go help. So I've been doing this for quite a while now, but appreciate you guys hanging out. Be sure to like and subscribe. Gonna have shows as much as I can, but yeah, we'll hang out with as many live shows too, just kind of back and forth, and certainly throughout the off season. So again, just stay tuned. A lot of cool stuff planned for the channel, but as always, really appreciate you guys. And until next time, go Birds.